The charger for this. So the battery goes. You can just.
Okay, thank you.
So we are sorted out. You see, when you have a meeting full of technology enthusiasts, so what is shooting? Which was coming? So we're going to use them. That's easy. It's going to be stationary. You see how clear the picture is and it's moving. In this business, so now everybody will be reading this one. So who's writing? Ghana? No. See, if you do it now, you can manage.
Where is Cannot?
Come on,
It's Robert. Robert Ali.
you can take what you like to. You want to you have the coalition of youth. Shoot the thing YouTube. That be the thing, come off for here. That be YouTube. So they're going out. That one all within inside. Now people they watch you for. So you know what? iPad you don't have time to sort it out. So we're using
Good morning. I'm Pauline Watien.
I'm Louis. Very nice to meet you.
From Dubai. Yeah, how are you?
Very good, very good.
So now we have to be holding
question whether or not you had
around.
public Wi-Fi.
Okay. And I don't want it
No.
to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because also we want the picture quality and the movement to be nice.
But the way the team do this, whether
No, wait. If like somebody do from the top, that one, if you put them down. But when we get to question time, where somebody has a question, at least you can lift it and position on the question.
that's okay.
That's why an iPad was better. But for some reason,
It's not no problem, it's fine.
so for now, put it at the front and let it be looking on the screen for starters. And then you
When it's
yes,
yeah, I will take it.
position it to be looking on the screen.
There's a charger there for it. Okay.
I think Asian has a good, all right,
Much better.
77. Sorry.
But does it work well with sound as well?
Yeah. Nobody's sitting here, right? Okay.
You know what they're connected to. I have no idea about it.
It's all right. So I'll sit here with you. Just do some small magic. Yes, I was.
Yes, a part of this. One of this one.
Yes.
Thank you.
No get now. That's a file, no one. I'll give you the.
Yeah, the picture one, not this one.
I would have put it up.
Is this yours?
No.
No. Okay, I'll have to remove this. This one. I don't know.
Okay.
No, you need another.
Hello, everyone.
You need a multi.
My name is Emmanuel. I think I know most, but not all of the people here. I work at Yes Ghana, and I'm so excited to be here this morning. Not only because I'm back to the British Council where Yes Ghana was launched in 2002, not 2012, 2002. But also because we are pioneering something that hopefully is going to engender a new discourse around youth development in the country. Can I kindly ask that all movements cease at this point so that we can get straight into action? Maybe except for our computer cameraman who is trying to capture the occasion live on YouTube so that our partners outside here can also be part of us. So I'm sure we all have an agenda. It's going to be hopefully a very short meeting. We're hoping that latest 12, but considering that the response has been quite good and we're starting a few minutes before time, unless the discussions become so hectic and we so choose to take some more time, our hope is that before 12, we can break off here for lunch and then we are all back to our offices. The workshop today is divided into three main sessions. I'll take a few minutes of your time to just go around welcoming everyone, and then we'll bring on the project manager who will give us an idea about the big idea project, and then we bring on the team that actually worked on this data audit on young people. And I believe there's a coffee break somewhere in there before we then begin our open dialogue on the usefulness or otherwise of this report. I've already started something like that outside with NS from the NYA, and he's preparing his bullets that he's going to shoot. So that promises to be a very interactive session. Fortunately, we have really important institutions here, and I would just like to start the introduction, which is why Pauline asked me to stand here now. Start the introductions by welcoming the ones I've met. Do you want to help me? I know we have NDPC.
Yes. Mr.
Doctor, I think.
Dr. Densa.
Okay. Please, can you wave to us? You don't need to stand. Please put your hands together. It's not all the time that you have a meeting like this. We planned this meeting to be very small on purpose because of the nature of the report. We didn't mean it to be a very big 200 participant conference. No, we will do that a lot more.
Yeah.
But this is the maybe, can I call it a partners dialogue on it. So thank you very much, NDPC, for being here. For more than 12 years, we've hardly got an NDPC person coming for our meetings. So we're so excited you are here. And I personally met the representative from ISE, who has kindly come over.
Dr. Awo?
Doctor,
No.
in Ghana, you have to be very careful.
Okay. Dr. Awo.
Please, thank you very much, Martha, for coming. ISE, as we all know, and by the way, ISE is Institute for, we all know ISE, don't we? All right, thank you. So ISE, as we all know, is one of Ghana's leading destinations for knowledge development, research, and so on. And I think we can, not too much, but we can give them some credit for working on youth, because we've worked with Dr. Jojo Usu, who has a lot of research on youth employment and so on, and was on our board in so much work, the youth manifestos. You're very welcome. We hope to get your input into this process.
The other key people who have come, we're still waiting for some
One,
so
because I see Nehemiah, one of Ghana's finest IT groups. Please wave us. Thank you.
yeah. We have yeah.
I think because I mentioned him earlier on about our debate outside.
Okay.
And normally the NYA chooses, I'm sorry, this is very bad, choose the events they go. But for Yes Ghana, they are always there. Please help me thank the NYA. We're very grateful that you're here. Let's take a few minutes, go around the table. Yes, just your first name and the institution that you represent, so that we have an idea of who is here. Don't make it long, first name and then the institution. But if you're a doctor, professor, please, you're free to add that one. I don't want us to get into trouble. So maybe we should start from my right hand side.
I'm the lab from yesterday.
Okay.
I'm Mania from Alpha Pre. My name is Eloya. I'm also from Alpha Pre.
Are you able to hear the man? Okay, we have to start again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't hear you.
I'm Della from Yes Ghana.
Okay.
Maminya from Asamoah from Alpha Pre. My name is Eloya. I'm also from Alpha. My name is Vera Abu, also from Alpha Pre.
That's the group of young people who help the consultant to do the research. So I think they decided to sit together. Please, can you mingle a little bit? Thank you.
Thomas Reed.
Another one. Please,
The people who
you've had enough of this woman. Can you just move to another place? Thank you.
Alexander, I Transform Foundation International.
Okay, welcome.
Jennifer from the Beyond Aid Project.
Oh, okay. You're welcome. Sorry. Oh, okay. You're welcome.
Thank you for that.
Okay, you're welcome. Hi. Welcome. Ah, okay. Where's Emmanuel? Okay. Welcome. Please.
Morning, my name is Louis from Portugal.
Ah. Automobile, by the way, is one of the new, I don't know if it's new, but in terms of the product we have. I think it should take a few minutes to tell us about Automobile before we close today.
From XA.
From
XA.
SA. Okay. From Sedusi Foundation. Welcome. Robert from Voices of Youth. Robert, welcome.
Roland, Youth Lane Ghana and Voices of Youth Coalition.
Okay. Welcome.
Estateria Jensen.
And that's from National Youth Authority.
Loretta, National Youth Authority.
Thank you.
Obviously not a good place.
Yeah,
Kofi from Mosaic Foundation.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay.
Josiah from iSpace.
So if you've not heard of iSpace, I'm sorry I'm being biased in highlighting some people that I know. But I think it's good because some of these people you might need in your along the way as you work. So iSpace is probably one of those top two, maybe, because I know also Accra works slightly differently. It's a hub where you can go in if you are a startup. You don't have an office yet. You don't have all the infrastructure of the company. You can go there. I don't know if it's free or you pay a little bit, and then you can have an office space, high-speed internet, and all of the things you need to run your startup. So they're doing very good job. The other day I read in
No money.
Okay, I'm Nehemiah Tiga from Hazard Solutions, from Odipro, and from Blogging Ghana. So I wear 3 hats sitting here.
Google those things and you see the great work that they do. Please.
Oh, I have to again. Okay, Dr. Womata for missing.
Okay, yes. I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. No, I don't usually just say. I just say Martha. That's okay for me. So just call me Martha, please.
Right.
Eric Baku from Ghana Independence Youth.
And I think everyone should leave here knowing what Godi is.
Excuse
they're
me.
doing fantastic work, and especially for the purpose of today's meeting, you want to connect with Godi, Ghana Open Data Initiative. Please,
Dr. Ferdinand from NDPC.
welcome, sir.
My name is Francis Sweetler from National Population Council.
Ah, do you know?
I haven't seen you, but yeah.
Yeah.
I know you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Please.
And my name is Michael April from Alpha Payments Limited.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Sylvia Seno. I work with the UNDP.
Ah, okay. You're welcome.
Thank you.
I think some people came in. Did we miss someone?
Yes.
Nicholas Adamte, Transparency and Accountability Chief.
Okay. Oh, that's a popular name, I think. Welcome.
Thank you.
And the lady, did she introduce herself?
I'm sorry, but you shared it.
UNDP, okay. You're welcome. Oh, and there we go. You came at the right time. Don't even sit down. Just tell us who you are and why you're looking so good.
My name is Adam. I'm an associate of here. I'm here to participate in the program.
There's a connection with the report you're having. So anyone who tells me I'll do a prize or some award for connecting that name to the report. Anybody? Yeah, the authors and researchers maybe of the report. Thank you very much, everyone. So, how many more minutes do we have? 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, is that my time?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gathered here, just as you already know, to hear the outcome of what we started with Alpha Primus sometime back in September.
Yeah.
So it took them a couple of months to put this report to, first of all, to conduct the research. As you know, just like everything research in Ghana, it's very difficult to find information. In fact, it's even worse when it comes to finding information on young people. If this were Parliament, I would ask those in agreement say yay. But I'm sure in your hearts you agree with me. Youth data is almost rocket science in Ghana. And we're trying to, our aim is to break this situation and come to a point where, moving forward, all of our national programming, whether in government, in civil society, within the UN system, and wherever, even private sector, we can rely on facts and the evidence base for which we can roll out programs. So say you're working on education for young people. How can we readily access information about young people's educational situations? So be it school attendance, dropout rates, gender distribution, whatever, any kind of information you need. And it's on young people. First of all, you know where to get it and how to get it and who has it. That's basically, I'm sure the researchers will be telling us into more detail, but in my own very layman's words, that's how to describe what we set out to do. And so the purpose is for them to tell us how they did it, and then we can come up with comments. Now, allow me to market Yes Ghana for 30 seconds.
Yes, go ahead, Manu. 30 seconds.
Have you started counting?
Yes.
Yes Ghana grew from being a youth, a collection of young people driven by passion, sometime in 2001, about how youth issues are almost, first of all, dictated by the elderly. And secondly, that young people, as a result of they not being part of the decision-making process, don't have their issues normally on the table. In 2001, all the way through to recently when we started just making noise, youth issues were not typically on the agenda. One of our big successes, and we don't think Yes Ghana brought that about, but we feel we've played an important role, is just to make sure that there is that growing awareness about the importance of engaging with young people. That the only way you can achieve results for young people who actually form the largest cohort of our population, we have someone from the Population Council who can probably attest to that, and the report confirms it, is that we need to bring them onto the decision-making table. The governance results that we seek, be it participatory development, be it transparency and accountability, can only be achieved if we have the largest group of people who form our population being part of how those decisions are made, but not to stop there. but also be part of how it is rolled out in a transparent and accountable manner. So we've been part of many global processes. We've built capacity over the years. We've connected with many institutions. And we are in a phase now where we want to partner with people who can help us build the evidence base for the work we do. We just signed a 5-year contract funded by MasterCard. And a big component of that is just to get the evidence base for our programming. And so we see the big idea, which is a project in partnership with a London-based NGO, Restless Development, funded by DFID, as a very good opportunity for us to tap into like-minded resources. And here I mean institutions that think like us and that want to do things in the way that we think is right. So we welcome you to collaborate with us. We will, for sure, connect with you and learn from you and work with you. I mean, we have probably a very excellent representation of people on this table. If you're looking at the advocacy side, if you're looking at the research and evidence-based, if you're looking at even the private sector, because someone was from the consultancy firm. So we have quite a good distribution here on this table who can then form that foundation we need in order to begin to shift from ad hoc programming to long-term projections grounded on the facts. That's what we seek to do. So I invite you to be very, very open with your discussions, very honest. Ernest, feel free to shoot, but also be welcoming of our shoots. Is that correct English? Since he came with the jacket, so if we shoot, he will be fine. And so I thank you for coming, and I hope that over the next probably 2 or so hours, we can make a very good, build a very good foundation for the new and emerging youth data revolution.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did I do well?
You did perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming today. I'm just going to review briefly the objective of this dissemination workshop. So as Emmanuel said, we will go through what's the idea is to have you understand more what the big idea is, though I won't go into too many details because today we really want to focus on the youth data audit. So the objective is for you to have space to express what you thought about the audit, and really, as Emmanuel said, give us feedback about how you can see the next step in terms of like improving access to youth data and collaborating successfully. So thank you all again. Yes. Yeah, I have to speak louder. Okay. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Okay. So so thank you all, and again, I'm gonna start. I think we have a pretty fair amount of people. So yeah. So searching for signal. So let me start with talking to you briefly about what the big idea is. As I said, I won't go into too many details because today we're really here to hear about the youth data audit that was consulted. Yeah. Yeah. It's where is it? I don't know if it's this one.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I was asking you to get it. So, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, okay, I go ahead. I'm going to try to be as loud as possible. Ask Michael downstairs. So, contextual analysis. Today, as you know, half the population of the world is below 25. It's not different in Ghana, since we have, according to the population, the Housing and Population Census report of 2010, we have 75% of the population in Ghana who is below 35 years old, and 1/3 of the population is between 15 and 35 years old. There is a huge mass of young people in the country, but they have not been necessarily felt that they were engaged in formal decision-making process. So they want to engage politically, but they have not feeling that they were part of the discussion. We have a draft National Youth Authority bill, but it does not necessarily address what the young people concerned and interests are. So we think that there is a way that young people can really engage and make their voices heard to take part to the implementation of a new national youth bill that would address what the young people across the country want to have in the bill. Also, in terms of citizens' representation in accountability mechanism, there are actions that are taken in the field, but it's not necessarily linked to a national accountability mechanism or priorities. So we're feeling that there is space for the citizens to really engage in accountability processes and to get the connection to make sure that we have decision makers to be held up for accountability. Also, there is a specific context about the data revolution. We call for a data revolution to have the data be shareable, be usable. But today there is still a problem of accessing to data, and there are inequalities in terms of who accesses data, who holds data, and there is usually power behind having data or not having data. So we think there is really space for people to engage in using data to commit for the SDG for the Sustainable Development Goals implemented at the national level. So we think that if people can have data and use data to follow what's going to be implemented, there is space for that. What needs to change if we want young people to be integrated, as Emmanuel said, in policy, in accountability frameworks, we have to train them to have skills. But not only to have skills, also to have networks. We really need in Ghana to have a youth platform that they can play a role in taking action in accountability mechanism. Also, about data, we need data to be more representative of the reality. So we think there is a role that young people can play in accessing data and good quality data. Also, we think that young people, since there is a huge amount of the population, they can be the people who can access data, generate data, and disseminate data. In terms of accountability framework, we think that citizen and government need model to have like citizen-led accountability mechanism to follow the commitment to the SDGs that will be agreed on in September 2015 and that we will have at the national level. So overview of the big idea. The big idea is the new data-driven program on youth-led accountability for the specific Sustainable Development Goals. 17 goals that are still drafted today and that will be finalized for next September. The hypothesis is simple behind the big idea. We want young people to take action, as you may have understood, and we think that what they need is knowledge, skills, and network. we cannot like have young people be strong if they are just like playing a role in individual basis. We think that if they are connected at a national level, and if they are connected to the accountability stakeholders, the decision makers, and also all the people who are involved in accountability advocacy, they will be stronger. And so we think that to track the progress of the SDGs and to make sure that this is happening, we will have this kind of network to play a key role. The big idea in Ghana, practically in Ghana, the big idea will be implemented with the support of the Voices of Youth Coalition, which is the national network that Yes Ghana has been working with, and which is spread across the country with a very strong network of young people. What we want to achieve is like to recruit young people across the country, train them on very specific skills, like what is accountability, what is advocacy, what is data, and what's the role of data in terms of holding decision makers accountable. And so we think that if young people are skilled, they have the skill that they need to understand their environment and also understand who are the key stakeholders, who has power, who can be influencing. We think that equipping young people with those knowledge and understanding will help them to navigate into different environments and create the connection with people. So once young people know about who is doing what and who they should talk to in terms of action, they will be able to create that relationship to gather data. So the idea is to have young people to gather existing data on news and also on other data that are available based on the youth data audit. That's going to be the baseline of our work for the big idea in Ghana. And also we want young people to create their own data. We think there is a gap in terms of data, so why not having young people analyze what's existing, what's accessible, what's available, but also hear from their peers about what's going on concretely in the field. And so we think that if young people can create their own data, collecting qualitative data, they will have a better understanding of what may be the gap. Because the idea is to have young people analyze what's the difference between institutional data and the qualitative data that they will get. Then, when they will have all those skills, they will translate into citizens-friendly format those data sets and make sure that they can spread the news. We were talking about what kind of role young people can play. We think that they can collect data, analyze it, and spread it to make sure that the data revolution is actually happening, like people should access data. And so to do so, they will be supported with technical skills and expertise on how to translate data into a friendly citizen and youth-friendly format, using web portal, using visualization, using mapping to make it be exciting and to involve as much as possible many representative young people. And that will help them to spread the news, what they have found, and to hear from the young people about whether what they have found in terms of what's existing, what is missing, what is the needs of the young people. They will push for having a new national bill that can address what is missing and what the priority of young people are. So that's an idea of at the national level. Also, we want to have young people to play a role in monitoring and reviewing the quality of service at the grassroots level. So young people, as I said, will have created that connection with decision makers, and so they will be able to navigate and go and ask the decision maker and hold the decision maker accountable for what they are doing in the field. We also think that young people will be able to convene different stakeholders from different backgrounds to discuss about what's missing and how we can improve the service delivery and the quality of the services, and implement an action plan concretely on how we can track the progresses and how we can hold the stakeholders accountable. Finally, we want to have young people being like skilled, connected, and knowledge to do some lobbying for greater citizen participation, because we think that the success of the new sustainable development goals will also depend on the participation of citizens and of young people. So right now, the big idea is really like starting, thanks to the wonderful work that Alpha Primus Limited has done and the team that did a great job. We have a better sense of what is the situation in terms of youth data today in Ghana, what is accessible, how we can make a recommendation on how young people could access data and how stakeholders could also like share data. So that's going to be a very engrossing starting point to see how we can implement really concretely the big idea. And so as a next step, we will in the coming months select, like really get started and select what we call a youth-led steering committee, having in that committee people from different backgrounds, and that's, I think you all represent skills that we look for, people from local government, people from national government, from the media, from accountability and advocacy background, to make sure that we have a committee that will help us follow the quality of the program and make sure that it's addressing the realities in terms of accountability, advocacy, and will help us support how the program is implemented. We will also recruit ideally 100 young people across the country, thanks to the support of the Voices of Youth Coalition, but also all youth networks, to find young people who are motivated in taking part to the big idea. Young people who may come from community-based organization, who can be like advocates in the field, and also people who are engaged at the grassroots level in terms of social change. We will tailor technical training for the Ghanaian context to make sure that we can train all those young people and provide them with the support they need to implement the project. And so that's what will happen in Ghana, train young people, sending them to the field, building those relationships and collecting data, analyzing data, sharing making sure that they can go beyond those mechanisms. That's going to be at the national level, and internationally, we also have accountability advocates from different countries that will develop such mechanisms on what works and what does not in terms of pushing for having integrated sustainable development goals focused on youth, and also to make sure that once the SDGs come to an agreement, we will make sure that it's happening in the field. We have indicators, we have targets, and the government will commit to follow those goals. So this is a pretty broad presentation. I didn't want to take too much time. Thank you for your attention, and I think I'm gonna hold for questions maybe before the break, not to make it be too late. I'm gonna give the way to Michael to talk about the youth data audit, unless you have quick questions, but I think we can also like discuss that later on. Thank you. The micro have come. Everything is possible. Thank you. Hello. Yeah, it's off. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, yeah. Should I got you?
Just helping you. Who's going to do the icebreaker? The first voice of the morning. Any questions on this part of the program? Questions for her on the big idea project? Something you want clarification on? Yes, sir. Do we have a second microphone?
Yeah.
Okay, please pass this one.
Good morning. My name is Francis from National Population. Yeah, I've read about a big idea, but I don't really actually they want, what they want to do in actual sense concerning the youth. I don't really get it clearly. So if you could really clarify that, because we have data on youth, I mean, national data. Are you going further to do collection of data again based on your methodology or the standard methodology that the country has? So I don't know what specifically you are about. I just want to know your objective of this program concerning the youth, and especially with regards to the data collection. You were saying you train people to collect data, which means you'll be using different softwares, different methodologies. So that's the clarification.
Yeah, thank you for your question. That's a very good one. What we expect to do is, build on what is existing already in terms of data. We know that young people may have limited skills, and that's a real work to do when you collect data. You have to be trained, you have to be supervised, and have very strong technical skills. We think that at the national level, we may not have youth data available at any place, and that's why we think that young people could play a role in collecting data about see what can be available in terms of institutional data at the local level, at the district level, across the country, and so they could contribute to producing data. And also, I was talking about qualitative data. We would like to have lived experience shared by young people about what they face in their daily life. And so there will be additional data that young people could collect to build on what's existing and how they can show what's available in the field as well. In terms of quantitative, that will be definitely building on what's existing, and young people will not go against the data that are existing, but more adding data and adding another perspective also on what data means and what information we have in the field.
If it's concerning about adding data on different issues, then fine, I think it would be very good information. And maybe you are collecting data on the youth in Kumasi, working on certain projects or having certain skills, so that it will be additional data for the nation. Then I think we can analyze that based on softwares.
In addition to what you would have, remember when you started asking your question, you said that you have a lot of data, I'm assuming at NPC, right? And I think, where's Godi? Yeah, are you familiar with the Open Data Initiative? No, not. Are you familiar with his organization? Okay, so the point I just want to make is that the big idea does not sit as a project. We're not a team of academics, researchers, or anything. You can see even the reports we had to go external. The idea, first of all, is to demonstrate that within the data community in Ghana, are there any particular sources we can get data that is disaggregated for young people, or for the age brackets that we recognize as a country that falls within youth? And I think NYU agrees from 15 to 35. That's one. So even when we come to NPC, we'll be interested not in all of your data, but whether you actually have disaggregated that in a way that we can use to make some meaning for programming when it comes to young people. That's one. So existing information, existing data by key state institutions, but also research institutions, think tanks, and so on. The second part is to also demonstrate that young people can be good action researchers. And one of the ways we want to do this is not to place them in competition with the well-renowned institutions. No. It is to train them in basic research skills that can make them go for these secondary data, but also to generate their own primary ones. Especially this will focus with the accountability advocates that she talked about, the 100 youth. This will focus on district level data. Young people want to know that in my district, what are the areas of, say, importance when it comes to reproductive health issues, which I think is of concern to NPC. And so, does NPC already have data that is so brought down to the grassroots that if I want my Etiwa data, I can get it? If not, then number one, the youth from that district can be trained to get some information. That's number one. Number two is that data in the hands of young people give them more entrenched basis for advocacy. For many years, we've done advocacy based on what we think is the right thing to do. As you know, globally, advocacy is changing from just talk to evidence-based. And we are demanding evidence-based programming from our politicians, from our policymakers, from everybody else. And young people cannot be left out. So ultimately, this is about combining what we already have with what we can generate, and together forming the basis for advocacy, for policy change. And we know that policy change will then lead to better programming, and hopefully better programming will lead to better circumstances, first for Ghana as a whole, but our target is then the young people. I don't know if that helps us to clarify the point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we'll allow other people. To ask a question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm the it's a very laudable idea. I got the explanation very clearly. I just wanted to ask, for how long will this project be in place? Because to me, as a researcher, if you just collect the data at one point, and that's the end of the project, and what you can deliver after 3 to 4 years, that becomes useless. So I want to know how often and how long will this project be?
Thank you, Dr. Sadima. So the idea is, to have this project not in just one shot, but last much long. So what we have done is at least to have like 2 years of implementation. But we also thinking about having a 5-year project, because we are aware that collecting data, if you want to have evidence that is rigorous, you should not have like one shot. That's going to be in the long run, not only in terms of collecting data, like from the baseline, but also midline and end line, but also like in terms of like contributing to the empowerment of young people. It's going to take time if you want them to really become accountability advocates and keep the work.
And maybe to add to that, I mean, usually projects are time-bound. They are done to demonstrate what is possible. So our intention is to whet the appetite of Ghanaian stakeholders to understand that the youth can play a much more constructive role in holding officers and whatnot accountable if we give them the tools to do so. So as long as we are carrying you along, our expectation is that working together with people like NDPC, NYA, etc., we can begin to rethink how do we ensure that the youth play a concrete and active role in ensuring that data is available and that data is being used to demand accountability and to improve the processes in this country. So it's not just about the project itself, because usually all donor projects are just to ensure that something is possible. Beyond that, it will take the rest of us here to make something concrete and sustainable for the future.
I think that might be the last question because I'm time conscious.
Sure.
Thank you. Please, mine is not a question, but it's about the project that is on the ground, which belongs to the government. That is Ghana Open Data Initiative. It is being initiated in 2012 by our late president. When Ghana signed into Ghana Data, how do you call it, Open Data Initiative, was initiative to make data available to the citizens in a reusable format, which is Excel, whereby we can use it to create our own stories and then engage citizens so that there will be, how do you call it, citizenship participation. And for that reason, we have about 1,400 about data sets in the portal, but I know many of you don't know about Ghana Open Data Initiative. Even the president was an evangelist, but before he became the president, but I don't know whether you could remember that he was part of us, but all the same, it's something we are still doing. The problem was we shouldn't have been at where we are now. You should have heard of us because we've not made a noise about Ghana Open Data Initiative because of funding. But for now, our achievement is recently we had there was this competition of Open Data Initiative, and then Ghana was third in Africa, and then 46 in the world, which we should have been the first because we started with a Vim, but lack of money, we couldn't get where we are now. But this year, the competition is still out, and we are hoping that the government will support us so that we can be at the top that we wanted to be. For now, engagement, citizenship engagement, our hackathons, and then boot camps. We actually planning 4 hackathons and boot camps this year, whereby we engage citizens to participate, to create a, how do you call it? Okay, so it's supposed to be a question, but I wanted to introduce Ghana Open Data Initiative to you. That is why I'm trying to talk long like that. So I'm sorry, I'll come back again. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the contribution. Okay, so we're going to move to the next.
No, let's give the opportunity to others. Okay, sorry. Anybody else has a question? Last.
No, I just wanted to find out because I mean, like you were saying, there's a whole lot of data on youth. Statistical service have been collecting data and things like that. And I was thinking that probably you might have gone through all these data and found out that there's a gap somewhere, so you wanted to fill that gap. So if it is just added on, and there's already existing data, because I glanced through this, I've seen something on unemployment, on education, and things like that. All this data is available, but then which specific areas that the gap is? Which areas that there is no data at all? I can understand. I mean, trying to empower the youth is a very laudable idea, but if it is added on to what is already existing and not closing the gap, I mean, that is where I don't know whether you have information of whether there's actually a gap, where there's data gap that you want to fix.
Let me just mention what is that? You see, if you look at the unemployment data, we always say that the unemployment rate of Ghana, if you compare averaging, is low. But actually, it's not low, it's because the way the data is collected.
Yeah.
Like, if you go to the European countries, like when you are employed, 1 hour, if you work 1 hour, you are tick. 2 hours, you are tick. At the end of the day, if it's less than maybe 6 hours before they class you as unemployed, so you realize that advanced countries may have a higher level of, but we collect it. Are you employed? Yes. No. So to me, if the project is geared to let's get people who work 1 hour in Ghana, 2 hours in Ghana, 3 hours for how do you disaggregated analysis, I would have loved it, but just to go and collect it.
Yeah, I think we can follow up with those questions.
I think that we should hold on to the next presentation because there are lots of questions coming up, which the next presentation will kill. It will just kill. So let's not even run before we have started to crawl. Let's not run. Yeah, because there are specific indicators at the global level we're looking out for. We send this to GSS, they are our friends. They told that we only have these ones. Those they had, you have to buy them. So you can put it there. Compared to that benchmark, what was not available will show you. So there's an understanding of where the gaps are. Let's just, and we are expecting that all of us here would then begin to think of the Ghana Youth Development Index. What are the categories of data and the indicators we think are most important to the lives of our young people here? So that if there are categories we should actually look for data for, we are all agreed. So we will not get to a point where it's there that people are going to look for data sake. No, we all have to agree on what kind of content is not available that is critical and must be used, sought for in order to move our development forward. So please, at this point, can we give another round of applause to Pauline? And I'll be inviting Michael. Tomorrow begins today. And so in concrete terms, when we say the youth must have the skills, they must have the knowledge, and they must have the networking, it takes us today to start what we want to see tomorrow. I left that bracket some 10+ years ago. And so I'm going to ask my colleague, mentee, my brother, and my friend, Michael, to do the presentation on behalf of the youth. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Good morning.
Take my.
I realize
That's all
that
right.
the data issues and data sets brings on people with a lot of it, wakes them up to pick up their weapons to fire. But please be easy on me. My team members are here. Please wave to everybody, my team members. So if you have any verbal torpedoes, please direct it also. They're not only here. Thank you very much.
He doesn't have a gun.
Okay. All right. So this is.
It's not sure. Nice come.
It's come. All right. So this is my team. Can someone please shift it?
No, it's okay.
That's okay.
Okay. All right. So this is my team. And mind you, this is not Photoshop. It's actually a jam. All right. It's not Photoshop. It's a jam. All right. Then I thank my teammates for giving me the platform to come and do this presentation. They told me I was going to be on YouTube. What they didn't tell me was that the package included palpitations and trepidations. They didn't tell me that one.
You are still on YouTube.
All right. So the big idea Ghana Youth Data Audit. With this, my name is Michael. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. We will be looking at the purpose for the study, and we'll look at the objectives and the methodology, and then we'll move on to benchmarking, and then we'll move on to findings, some of our findings, some of our conclusions, and if I have not bored you to death, we'll move on to recommendations.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, but before I go, I just want to quote something from Professor Douglas North, who is a Nobel Peace Laureate. He says that to survive in today's competitive world, one needs to continually learn, be innovative, and progressively change. I believe the Ghana Youth Data Audit gave us a point of learning, a lot of points of learning, and also gave us, it's like Emmanuel said, it's unprecedented. So it was an innovation really in Ghana's youth data set. And we believe that when we work along with the recommendations that have been given in this data audit report, we will progressively change or progressively proceed to development of youth in this country. All right, now the background. The purpose of the Ghana Youth Data Audit was first to investigate and analyze the extent to which residence development key partners in Ghana lack credible, usable data about young people upon which they could develop sustainable and effective youth policies, and also to point out or to recommend the way forward for future youth policy development issues in the post-2015 framework. The objectives. The first objective was to assess the existing data on youth in Ghana. And this was to be used to see the implications for youth policy development and also how we could use the existing, or how we could apply the existing data to monitor the SDGs, or the Sustainable Development Goals. The second objective was to identify missing critical data on Ghanaian youth and its implications for the National Youth Bill and for achieving the SDG. And our last objective was to gather missing data considered critical to the development of effective youth policies and programs. So the methodology we applied, we applied the method or pragmatic approach, which was a combination of the quantitative and qualitative methods. And we did this because we thought it was the best method to be used for this research. The one advantage it does is that it enables triangulation. And the second advantage is that it helps us to integrate text with statistics. And so we thought it was best for this kind of research. And what we did also was to do purposive sampling to identify 5 key public institutions that we thought could be potential sources of credible, usable, comprehensive, and public data. Comprehensive in the sense of its scope, and public in the sense of accessibility. We also did purposive sampling of 20 of the 21 sector ministries in Ghana. And that was to also expand our scope beyond only 5 institutions, sorry. We did a sampling of 150 youth-focused organizations and provided to us by the National Youth Authority. And we randomly selected at least 30, random selection of 30 youth-focused, youth-led organizations. And this was significant because we wanted to achieve statistical significance. That's why we selected at least 30. Potential biases in the audit design, were also addressed. What we did was randomization to average out variations. That's the first thing we did. We randomized to out, and we also blinded the investigators to ensure that they were not involved or did not influence the random selection of the youth-focused organizations. And what we also did was triangulate so that we ensured our results were enhanced and their conclusions to enhance. And we also made some ethical considerations to make sure that respondents' rights were upheld and not violated. So benchmarking. This is where a lot of the firing that was going on will be answered. I hope so. And I pray that after I'm done, there will be no firing of me. I'm not ready for that. Okay, so what we did was, in order to carry out the audit, we went out to look for a globally accepted framework with which we could assess the states of youth data in Ghana. And what we came up with was a combination of the 2 well-known indices or frameworks, the Commonwealth Youth Development Index and the Global Youth Wellbeing Index. We combined these 2 frameworks to come up with an acceptable framework with which we could assess the institutions and the various data sources in Ghana. And the combination gave us 5 broad categories and 36 indicators. We will find those as we move along. And this framework that we came up with was used to assess the 5 institutions we purposely sampled, like I mentioned from the beginning. And these institutions were the Ghana Statistical Service, National Development Planning Commission, Institute of Statistical Service, National Youth Authority, and Ghana Open Data Initiative. And now to our findings. With our findings, we'll be looking at these subheadings: availability of youth data, credibility of the youth data, accessibility of the youth data, and youth data usage. All right, so to our first finding, on availability of youth data under the education category. So education was one of the categories, the broad categories that we developed as a framework. And under the education category, the first 2 columns represent the Commonwealth Youth Development Index and the Global Youth Wellbeing Index, respectively. And then the next 5 columns represent the institutions that we sampled from Ghana. And it is obvious, if you look at the matrix, that GSS was the only institution that had some data covering the specific indicators we came up with under this category. And some of the categories that they had data covering included education spending as a percentage of GDP. They had data covering youth literacy, and they had data covering school enrollment, secondary and tertiary. And this gives us, compared to the global standard, an availability of 50% of youth-specific indicators, data on youth-specific indicators under the broad category of education. 50%, because GSS has 3. And none of the institutions had any data on the remaining indicators, or any of the indicators. All right, on the availability of youth data on health and well-being, there are 11 indicators under this one. And yet again, you will notice that GSS had data on 3 of the specific indicators out of the 11. Yet again, none of the institutions had any data covering any of these specific indicators. But yet, again, I want us to know, it's worthy to know that the National ACE control program had some data covering the AIDS prevalence rates amongst the youth in Ghana. And the Ghana Health Service also had some data, specifically the Reproductive Health Division of the Ghana Health Service. They had some data covering the teenage pregnancy rates amongst the youth in Ghana. That gives us a total percentage of 45 compared to the global framework of data available on youth in Ghana under the broad category of health and well-being. If you look again at the framework that we developed under the category of employment and economic opportunities, the indicators were 8. And yet again, I keep on saying yet again because yet again, GSS had data covering 4 of the 6 specific indicators, and that included youth unemployment. They had data also on youth employment ratio. They had data on GDP per capita. They had data on youth not in education, employment, and training. NEET youth, they had data on that. And none of the institutions had any data set covering any of these specific indicators. And that gives us a percentage of 67% of data available on youth in Ghana concerning employment and economic opportunities. If you look at the availability of youth data in political and civic participation, compared to a global standard again, you realize that our percentage is very, very low. That's 12.5%. That is because it is only the National Youth Authority that indicated that they had data on youth policies and representation. Not even GSS or any of the other institutions had any data covering any of these specific indicators. And that is really low. And the lowest of them all really is the data on youth concerning the category of safety and security. So far as I'm concerned, I thought security and safety was important to the youth of Ghana. But if you look at, compared to the global standard, you realize that none of the institutions in Ghana had any data concerning youth safety and security. And we can take solace in the fact that the Commonwealth Youth Wellbeing, Commonwealth Youth Development Index does not also have any data set on that, but it's not good enough. All right. Like I mentioned earlier, we also purposely sampled the 21 sector ministries. And these are some of the findings that we came up with. 43%, that is 9 of the 21 ministries, indicated that they had some data on youth in Ghana. 57% or 12 of them indicated that there was no data in their database for youth in Ghana. And it's also good to note that most of these institutions, that the 9 ministries that had data on youth, indicated that the data that they had was on specific ministry initiatives and projects, and not broad-based data sets that they went out to collect. It was on specific ministry projects. That is what they had. And the type and credibility of data in most of these ministries, we believe must be assessed in later surveys. All right, so now to credibility of youth data in Ghana. What we did was to create 2 tools to assess the credibility of data sources in Ghana and the data sets themselves. So this is the first tool, which was a tool to assess the credibility of data sources as in the institutional and systems and processes for data collection. So this was at the institutional level, auditing the processes that the institutions used in collecting their data. And so the questions that were developed include, was or is an in-house training for data collectors or recorders conducted? Was or is language compatibility considered? In the sense that if you are taking your researchers or collectors into a community, do you consider the language of the people and the language that the researcher also speaks, whether he can communicate with them? And these are some of the questions in the tool for assessing credibility at the institutional level for data collection, the processes and the systems. This tool was used to assess the credibility of the data set itself. This is a tool we developed to assess the credibility of the data set itself, and also to determine whether the data set collected could be used to make certain extrapolations or to make certain, or to draw certain conclusions. And these are the questions that we developed. And what is the sample design? Can a decision or estimate be made with the desired level of certainty, given the quality of the data? And with that, we compared GSS and GES. And if you look at the report, you realize that the institutions that were actually fundamentally formed to collect updates themselves with data did well with this credibility test, because from the scratch. They were built to have the systems to collect data, to update them, and correlate, and then also make certain extrapolations and conclusions for their work. Accessibility of youth data. As indicated, there were 36 specific youth indicators. Only 14 of the benchmark indicators were available and readily accessible in Ghana. 12 of these can be found in GSS, Ghana Statistical Service, and that can be accessed through an online application. There is also one indicator from Ghana Education Service, which is also included in the GSS indicator, that is education spending as a percentage of GDP. Ghana Health Service, like I mentioned earlier, also has data on teenage pregnancy rates from their Family and Reproductive Health Division. And also the National AIDS Control Program has one indicator. They have data set on one indicator, which is the AIDS prevalence rate in Ghana. We realized that there was a dichotomy between the feedback time and processing time in data requests. And the feedback time confirms, that is the time that it takes to confirm from the institution that we requested from to get back to us that they have received our request and are working on the data request we have made. That could take as low as 1 week, as short as 1 week, sorry. It could take as short as 1 week. But the processing time actually was not determined. There was no determined time for processing time. It could take 1 week, 2 weeks, 2 months, 8 months, God knows how long, but it was not determined. It could take a long time to get the data set. And in assessing data also, you realize that most of our data sets are available at GSS. And GSS, you only access the information, or you can access the information, I won't say only, sorry. You access the information through an online application. And just imagine that somebody from the rural area wants to access the 12 data set. That's like a majority of all the data sets we have concerning the specific indicators on youth in Ghana. Imagine somebody wants to access this data from a rural area where there is no electricity, or where Doomsday Inspector is taking its toll, and where the internet is also down, or there's no internet at all. It will be difficult. So it marginalizes those in the rural areas, and it gives only a privileged advantage to those in the urban areas to be able to access the majority of the data sets we have in Ghana. And we also realized that from our findings that the Ghana census is done in 10 years, if I can say annually. It's done annually, if you permit me to see it that way. And because of that, it is difficult to make trend analysis on annual basis. And even though GSS does in between the 10 years, they do specific surveys. It is not, the scope is not broad. It is only specific surveys, and the data sets that are available, that are potentially available from GSS may not all be covered. And accessing data from MDAs, the ministries, departments, and agencies, we realized that the approval required a high level approval. So let's say the Director General of the ministry will be the one who would, at his discretion, decide whether he would approve your data request. And we think that portends a possible difficulty. On data usage, youth data usage in Ghana, we randomly sampled at least 30 youth-focused organizations. And we realized that 100% of the youth-focused organizations interviewed confirmed that they had need for youth data in Ghana. 80% of them, that's 24 of the institutions we sampled, managed to access data, but only after several attempts. 37.5% of the 80% accessed data only once after 5 attempts. 29.16% managed to access data 3 times out of the 5 attempts. That's 29.16% of the 80% access data 3 times after 5 attempts. And we also think that's a difficulty. Only 47.82% of the youth-focused organizations used the data they collected to hold any public institution accountable. And if you look at the main sources from which these CSOs were successful in obtaining data, you realize that it's Action Aid, some from the international organizations. So now to the conclusions. Now they are looking at me, I know you are not bored. Okay, to the conclusions. The first conclusion is that Ghana has insufficient credible data covering relevant youth data categories and indicators of policy formulation, evidence-based policy formulation, implementation, and monitoring. The second conclusion we came to was that among the 5 institutions, GSS, NYA, ISA, and the Godi, and the rest, you realize that only GSS has the most credible, available, and accessible youth data sets covering health, education, and employment and economic opportunities. Other identified key public sources of current data, current available accessible youth data is GHS, Ghana Health Service, and the Ghana Education Service. We also realized that there were two operating definitions of youth in Ghana. The first is the UN definition, which says that youth is between the ages of 15 and 24. And the other one is the African Youth Charter definition, which is 15 to 35. Now, Ghana has signed on to both of these, and we are operating the two in this country. And according to the National Youth Policy of Ghana, youth is between the ages of 15 and 35. But from our findings, you realize that the institutions, government institutions, public institutions, if they had any data on youth, was between the ages of 15 and 24. And we think that there is a disconnect there. And also, one conclusion that we came to was that youth and youth data are key to achieving the Millennium Development Goals and eventually the Sustainable Development Goals in the post-2015 framework. And this is because, one, there's a strong link between youth and various developmental issues. And this research was done by USAID. They concluded that. And the second is that interventions that have involved youth have been more successful. And that is not surprising because the majority of the world's population is under 30. And the third is that the sheer size of the world, you have mentioned that sheer size of the worldwide youth population makes it necessary for us to include them in our policy formulation, implementation, monitoring, and everything. The sixth conclusion we came to is that very few of the sector ministries in Ghana outline a specific role for the youth in their sector policies or take advantage of their demographic dividend. And then other conclusion is that youth data is available on only 4 of the 18 priority focus areas of the Ghana National Youth Policy. Ghana National Youth Policy, only 4. That's 32%. There is also a limited alignment between the National Youth Policy and the post-2015 development of proposed Sustainable Development Goals. And framework, 7 or 39% of the National Youth Policy priority areas align with the framework. And like I mentioned, we have 18 focused priority areas and only 7 align with the SDGs. The general lack of youth-specific targets and indicators for even the goals that were found to be aligned means that very little impact or benefit will accrue to the youth of Ghana. And globally, under the proposed post-2015 development framework in its current state, which I believe we can work to change. The 10th conclusion, key areas where adequate data is required include in support of and as a basis for enhancing the current youth policy, to monitor implementation of the youth policy, to facilitate registering, licensing, and regulating youth-led and youth-focused organizations nationally, and to inform general policy development across sectors, and to monitor implementation of the proposed Sustainable Development Goals. Youth-led and youth-focused organizations in Ghana also have several unmet youth data needs, mostly related to health and employment and economic opportunities. Public knowledge about the existing youth data in the targeted public data providing institutions is limited, and that was demonstrated by our friend from Godi. Most people have not even heard of Godi. There's a disquieting depth of the knowledge of the availability of youth data or data sets in general. Even though the government of Ghana signed on to the Open Government Partnership in 2011 and has developed a plan of action, it is following, fully meeting its commitments under the partnership has been slow, particularly the passage of the Right to Information Bill. Very slow. Okay. All right, so I'm sure. Okay, so to the recommendations now. These are the recommendations that we came up with and from the conclusions that were made. And we believe that we can add on, we can contribute to make this work better for the motherland. So the first recommendation was the Ghana Statistical Service should be engaged and resourced to expand the scope of youth data categories and indicators. It researches and to increase the frequency of youth data updates. We can't wait till 10 years to disaggregate the data they collect, the population census, disaggregate data from that. It's too long. We have to have periodic updates of frequency of youth data. To improve the scope of relevant youth data categories and indicators, the National Youth Authority, together with key stakeholders, including youth focus groups like Yes Ghana and others, should work together to clearly define the key youth data indicator areas. And in addition, the relevant categories for collection, collation, and reporting, and they should engage GSS on this. There is a critical need to ensure that MDAs have systems in place to generate, keep, and provide youth data. The National Youth Bill should be modified to incorporate a clause guaranteeing that this should and will be done. The National Youth Authority, together with youth sector stakeholders, should harmonize the youth definition and age-range issues. At the very least, youth data covering both definitions ought to be captured to meet the various national, regional, and international commitments. And I'm sure the National Youth Bill can also incorporate this to mandate that it should be done. If we don't come up with our own one-time definition, we can do both. There is a need to improve youth data accessibility through addressing location, cost, language, and time constraints. Passing the RTI bill will contribute to this, but in addition, establishing standards for youth data provision, covering language, format, timing, etc. is very important. The NYA should work with key stakeholders, including GSS, to address the youth data constraints we currently have. Further and future updates of the National Youth Policy should be evidence-based, using research to support its priority areas. NYA can begin to consider how to facilitate such a process now. Youth-focused and led organizations need to urgently work with the government of Ghana, particularly NDPC, to formulate youth-friendly and inclusive SDG targets, NDPC and UNDP, to include youth-friendly SDG targets and indicators at the district, regional, and national levels. The Australian National Youth Policy, which we took a look at and really studied well as part of our research, it provides a model of several learning points and opportunities for enhancing the current National Youth Policy. And one of the key recommendations we got out of that is that the government of Ghana, Ministry of Youth and Sports, and the National Youth Authority must commission a state of the Ghana Youth Report, and apolitical, unbiased state of the Ghana Youth Report, non-party manifesto, not a party manifesto, state of the Youth Report, but an apolitical one. And this should provide a comprehensive framework and reference points on the state of Ghanaian youth. There is a need to update and have available a comprehensive list of youth-focused and led organizations in Ghana, and to develop a national platform for regular engagement, at least on an annual basis. And I think NYA has done well in this. They already have connection and access to a lot of these youth-focused organizations and a list of them also, but we can do more on that. There is a need to update and have, And the 10th recommendation, greater sensitization and education on the availability and accessibility of existing youth data in public sector institutions, especially data providing sources. Agencies is required. Yes, Ghana, together with key stakeholders like the NYA, can take this up. The youth of Ghana ought to demand a review of sector policies to adequately reflect their pivotal role in promoting development for the country. The NYA, together with the key stakeholders such as Yes Ghana, should again take this thing up. The keen interest of the youth in ICT and social media should be harnessed to ensure better monitoring of the post-2050 development framework and to overhaul how data is collected, collated, and utilized to promote development, e-systems and phone applications to develop to monitor the SDGs. And there is a need to further develop capacity of the for the youth-led and focused organizations to use data to engage and hold institutions of state and public officers accountable. Yes, Ghana should consider working with necessary stakeholders such as NYA and other stakeholders to develop such a program. It looks like NYA is central to our work on youth in Ghana. That's why they are the authority on youth in Ghana. All right. So greater youth participation for accountability in the post-2015 development framework should be galvanized by expanding the involvement of youth. Like I stated earlier, any program or interventions that have involved youth have been seen to be more successful. That's a research done by USAID. The current youth data audits, although limited in scope, should provide a foundation for an expanded follow-up audit, which we recommend. This further audit could focus on the credibility of the youth data within other ministries and take a close look at international agencies like the World Bank and UN agencies in Ghana, as well as potential civil society sources of youth data, some of which have been identified in this report. All right. So with these things are taken into consideration, and with the efforts, the collective efforts of all of the institutions and us gathered here, we believe that we, the young people of Ghana, can look into the future with a brighter hope. Thank you very much. And please go easy on me. That's not
Thank you very much. All right, so we have a period of questions and answers. I could see those. So, I'll start with NDPC. And can we make it short and snappy? Since I'm told we just have about 20 minutes or so.
When you look at the institution, you included NDPC. But when you look at the mandate of NDPC, we are not for data collection. What we do, what I mean is, there are institutions that you use make the result bias. Because if you are dealing with 5 institutions and you put in an institution, I'm talking about NDPC, that is not responsible for data collection. Okay, ISA, that is 2 out of 5. It means when it comes to credibility, we get a low scoring, and that is what we have here. So our mandate is not data collection. In Ghana, the institution that is responsible for data collection and the only institution by law is Ghana Statistical Service. So it is the only institution that you can use to check credibility. And when I listen to the presentation, the credibility for Ghana Statistical Service is high. So it means we are doing well. Other institutions, to my best knowledge, we are not data collection institution. Secondly, we also use random sampling. And the first question I ask is, are we, the organization, the NGO, are we taking into consideration regional imbalances and bias towards the results, which are not seen in your presentation? Then you talk about safety and security. The next question I said, that's the issue I want to raise first. Data is collected in Ghana, not in terms of ages. If an accident happens, when you go to the police station, your name, then you just put it there. But we don't have the system whereby we take your age and those. So there's data, but it is not collected well. That is the way I look at things. And then the conclusion that you raised, the first conclusion about the data, how you put to your conclusion. I keep on saying, why do you draw that conclusion? Because in Ghana, it's only Ghana Statistical Service, and you've seen that they are credible. So why do you create the impression that the data are not credible? Thank you. I'll come back.
He's made it soft for you. Mine would have come a different way.
No, let me just. Yeah. First of all, our terms of reference already had these institutions, and the thinking behind it was beyond GSS. Let's see whether there are other public sources where the information will come. So that's our terms of reference. So you cannot fight with us over that. We already give you those institutions. So
it's a result.
Can I?
Because this is going to the international.
You bring the summit what you want to get.
We are on YouTube as well. Please. Please. Now, but I think that what is very important is that please remember that the benchmark of what you have under the global frameworks, several of the indicator areas, none of the institutions we spoke to, even when we expanded the scope beyond the 5, and keep that in mind. The original scope was 5. We are voluntarily expanded to cover all ministries in sector ministries in Ghana, and also at our own cost expanded to select CSOs randomly and also speak to them. And it was intentional because as consultants, we certainly felt that to have a very good representation of what is happening, expand beyond the initial scope. So we did. And what I'm saying is this: if you look at the global framework, the categories and indicator areas, when we put a set of questions, does anybody have information on these categories and indicators? The answers generally came back no, with the exception of GSS that said, for these specific categories and these specific indicators, yes, we can give you some data. So,
let me give you some.
So, no. Don't let this become. That will not be fair.
Exactly. You can have some issues that cannot be interrogated.
You interrogate them. I'm just saying that. Oh, boss. But I'm saying that. Let me finish and let others also speak. I mean, I'm also facilitating. That's what I'm saying. It's not because I want to let him speak. I hope you understand me. Yeah, please. Let me respond. And then there's process. Are you following me? Please, let's calm down.
This one realized that when you go to the constitution, the mandate of NDPC is to advise the president on development planning policy. That's our mandate.
But you use data to
evidence.
Please. NDPC will not send people to the field to go and collect data for us. We get our data from Ghana Service and then to see that request.
You are advising or you are advising or influencing policy.
And so let's don't go that way. If I want to do planning, I'll go to statistical service, get that data and plan. So if you come to me and say you collect data on that information,
it doesn't collect. Don't get confused.
So we have the data. Anytime we are preparing.
We're not talking about connection. We talked about availability.
If you come to us, all the data that Ghana Statistical Service have, we have it. We have the same data that we have. So that's what I'm saying. The same data they have.
I think this raises some of the challenges that the report actually highlighted.
Okay.
I believe sometimes even institutions do not know of the availability of the data. Because I mean, in the report, there were some institutions who were like, we don't have health data. Meanwhile, it is there. So I'm sure maybe when the questionnaire was brought to NDPC, yes, we all agree, GSS is supposed to collect the data. But if GSS gets it right, NDPC will get it right because NDPC knows where to get the data. Yeah, so I believe that, and it is stated in the report, that some institutions were not how do you call it, educated on where to get the data from.
Sometimes the availability of data is not all institutions that uses all data that GSS collects. I mean, if I go to GSS and I need information on education, I only take education on education. And depending on the category of people I'm looking at, that is the set of information I take. If I go and I need information on health, it's only health I take. So if you come to me and you ask that you want information on maybe disability and I said I don't have, that doesn't mean that I think, and if I'm selecting, I think we should have also looked at this institution, what is their mandate? What is their vision? What do they do? So do they have something? So if you don't do that, then you just like you went beyond and I think that because ISCA doesn't collect data, and if we are doing some research, depending on what we are doing, we go and collect that for that particular sector. So if you come and we say, I mean, a particular institution says that we don't have data on this, I think it doesn't
Okay, I have a feeling who were giving the reports to read haven't read. So we are having a disconnect, but let others speak and maybe we can get some clarity because I'm not quite sure what the difficulty is.
Thank you very much.
I think I enjoyed the presentation.
You did.
But then the issue that is on the floor now, from when the presentation was being done, I was also having the same thinking that GSS and these other institutions have different mandates. And therefore, on what basis are we doing the comparison? And the point that is being made by Doc, that for NDPC, probably I will probably understand that because they are into monitoring and evaluation of all projects within Ghana, they should have all our data. But if you are talking about health, then even though they are also a data producing institution, they will be limited to only health issues. And so if you are looking at other indicators, you may not find it there. So are the other institutions. And so comparing availability of data in these institutions, I think we need to think about that in our future. I have just 2 comments on the. I think we also talk about youth safety from crime, that the data is not available. Probably at the time, yes, but let me say that in 2012-2013, Ghana Statistical Service conducted Ghana Living Standard Survey, and we had a model on governance, safety, and crime. And so now we have something on this. And then also talking about data requests and feedback. Sometimes it could take 1 month, 2 weeks, and so on and so forth. Yes, I think when the people came, what we told them was that it's based on the kind of request that people make. Ghana Health Service, for instance, made a request 3 months ago, about 2 months or so ago, and we are still struggling to finish because of the volumes involved. But in some cases, people come and within 1 day they get it. So it depends on the kind of request that people make. And that is, let me also say that Statistical Service has restructured its activities, and so we have in place what we call Resource and Data Center, and they are in charge of making sure that those who make requests, get it speedily. And so we have moved on a bit. Thank you very much. I will later make a presentation, so some of these issues that have come up, I think, will be addressed in that presentation.
Thank you very much. We'll take 3 more. So you have done all the keys to want to speak?
Yes, I do. Good morning. My name is Francis Martin. Thank you very much for inviting me to this. I just kind of happened to. I just fell upon this event by chance, but I'm glad to get the opportunity. For me, I'm very excited that the youth actually want to engage in things going on in Ghana. I'm from Ghana. Currently, I study medicine outside, and I came for vacation, but also to do a little bit of work while I was here. And a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to come back and do some research, clinical research in Ghana. It was related to HIV, and just the data that I had available to me, even at the institution that I was at, was difficult to work with. I found out that, we're talking about HIV, and you have patient charts that doesn't have CD4 count information, something as basic as that. So I think it's the move towards evidence-based, it's a wonderful idea, and I think it's very much needed. What I got from the earlier presentation is that the big idea is moving towards, I think the organizations like GSS and some of the national organizations, they're looking at the big picture, but also trying to break things down so that we get information and data at the smaller levels, the local levels, helps to make that bigger picture, so much better. For instance, if we can get, I'll use my institution as an example. Students engage in local research all the time, and based on some of the research that the students did going out to the community, we discovered a need for a clinic, a free clinic for people who cannot afford it, and that led to the establishment of a student-led free clinic for people in the area. Now, maybe on a national scale, something like that would have been missed, because if you're just looking at national data, maybe data from GSS, you won't be able to identify, what a specific area needs. So I think it's wonderful that the big idea, is moving towards that. I did have a couple of questions, which I'll save for later.
We have a full dialogue coming up. It's a detailed one. The rest of the day is going to be.
All right, I'll save the rest of my comments next. Thank you. Thank you.
No, I will come back to you. GSS, please, when you speak at the dialogue after, please address the concerns about grassroots level. If there's anything on that.
Thank you very much. My name is Nicholas. Actually, thank you very much for your presentation. I think it's in line. I really enjoyed it. What to me, I think the essence of the research is okay. the purpose and the goals and the objectives, they are okay. But I think I agree with NDPC, ISA, and the rest. I, for instance, I'm a researcher. And any time I want an information, like say education, I cannot bypass Ministry of Education. I do budget analysis. Ministry of Finance data is the one I use. Because if I go behind them and use any other data, and I'm doing the advocacy, it's possible they will reject. They will say, where did you get this data from? So on there was this table, I think, on education. I would have wished you would flip this thing back. For instance, I would have wished that NDPC ISA could have been taken away from this, and we could have slot in GES. For instance, for us to know the indicators, whether GES and GSS, for instance, they are sort of achieving these goals, so that at the end of the day, these two institutions will be able to know how well they are really ensuring that we achieve our focus. For instance, sorry, just a second. For instance, if we are spending on the Ministry of Education, how well are they ensuring that the MDGs or the SDGs that you are talking about, whether we'll be able to get results for those things? So your concerns are in right, ISA and NDPC. So I think
we have a last. Thank you. That's very useful. We have a last one, and I promise you, everyone will have probably more than 5 minutes when we come to the dialogue.
Thank you very much. My name is Kamna from Green. I just also want to raise the issue of the Ghana other institutions that were captured. I want to find out during the process on the work, was there a case where perhaps you require certain information, but you didn't get that information from the statistical service, and then you're able to find it in some of the institutions? Why am I saying so? He raised an issue about where he said there was not data on security and safety for the youth. And he did admit that in 2013 or so, they did that, was the name, survey. It could be that one of the institutions wanted to undertake a project in safety in 2011. And as of 2011, Ghana Statistical Service do not have that information. So they need to embark on their personal agenda to get that information. So it is possible that an institution, although not mandated by law, to undertake research, would require some information at the government and would bypass Ghana Statistical Service. So how then do you, as you bring those things in play and make sure that indeed, despite the fact that Statistical Service is mandated to do this, other institutions would have, what's the name, the right to information. And I think on that score, they are right to include some of those other institutions. And lastly, I want to talk about where you spoke about the national policy not in line with the SDGs. I've had my problems with the national youth policy. It was passed in 2010, and it only took about 5 years for them to even pass the implementation strategy. And I'm aware that what's the name, the Sustainable Development Goals was only approved in 2014. That was December. And if it was only approved in December 2014, it would be fair on the national youth policy to expect them to have policies in line with the SDGs. So maybe if there's a way you could also work on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So you take the final closure words. Don't try to respond to anything. Just closure, and then when we come back, you can start with your responses before we open the floor.
I think that it's been a very good discussion. I think it's important to remember this is pioneering work. Even trying to think through how we found a benchmark to do the assessment. It took a number of days to say, okay, now let's go global, let's find something, let's put it together, and let's do the comparison. Our terms of reference already identify some institutions that the originators thought potentially may have youth data. And that's what they started from. And I think was a very good starting point. They just said, well, in engaging a consultant to do this for us, let's think through who might have data in Ghana. And that's where they started from. We then expanded the scope and said, let's cover all the ministries in Ghana and also look beyond that to civil society and see what we could pull out. And that's what you find here today. I think within that context, at least we have a good starting point to begin to engage and talk about these issues. And when further said, then you see that one of our key recommendations is that there must be further follow-up surveys that take on board all the other issues. And that is key because anything you start will always have its difficulties. But beyond that, let's see how we put our hands together, put our hands on board, and move this forward. And we're hoping in the next session, that is exactly what each of us will be doing, contributing to the future of Ghana and supporting the youth of Ghana. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for Adam and especially Michael for all of the minutes. Please, I think we have 15 minutes late, but that's okay. Let's take 10 minutes, stretch our legs, take the discussions to the coffee table, and please come back quickly so we can have more time for the debates. Thank you very much. See you in 10 minutes. Can you tell us where it is? Is it downstairs?
Downstairs in the garden.
Okay, it's downstairs in the garden. Thank you.
Are you going to continue publishing the tea break?
Do you want to? I don't know.
No.
You can capture people as they go out.
I don't manage that. No, not a Facebook one. It's my sister who does that one. She said it to me.
Who is Gomda?
Gomda.
The guy who's what?
The guy.
Oh, okay.
Come on. Come on.
Boss. Remember.
Make sure the end is good.
Make a break. We're live. That's
Yeah, I've met her in a couple of hello. Sounds like a card. Somebody from help us.
Okay, let's go. Feel free to leave your locked up place.
No, wait, there was another program on the board. Yeah, I did a presentation.
And is this missing?
Oh, we can be. I was so convinced I've met you at the old man. It was nice to see you. What's your name? You can look to arrange the panelists.
Yes, but we need to show that we are on break. Yeah, so I was going to try to write on this one.
Yes, direct opposite the main entrance to the stadium. Yes. But currently, I'm out. I don't know whether Monday can. Monday 10 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, somebody said that he would need the screen. Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, finally, what do you like in
It's 11. It's 11 now. So yeah, it was. I think it's reasonable.
Open the next one.
So
I think
you had planned.
We had planned 4, but give or take 4 days, rather than 4 days.
Yeah.
however you want.
Yeah.
But maximum by 1 week.
Yeah.
Maximum by
Definitely.
then there are steps.
So that's if we get to that point.
We hope to finish it as well.
I'll be around for you. Before 1. Okay.
Yeah. The projector.
Yeah.
This way. Yeah, let me just click it here. Sorry, what's the problem, Richard? Why not having it here? I think it's good. You can just like it this way.
Okay. One o'clock. Which one is that? The same thing. Okay.
So what's wrong? Why don't you want to do
It's this one.
it?
So we push this one. Oh, actually, okay, see, I'm moving it. Yeah, we're actually leaving this. Can you please help me with the cable? Thank you.
Welcome back, and we want to proceed with our discussions on the report. I would like to invite upstage to sit where our panel will be sitting. Dr. Robert Mensah is not here. Has he sent any representative? Dr. Robert Mensah, NFP, no representative. Okay. Also, Ms. Sylvia Sefakosen, UNDP, could have you upstage. Can we put our hands together as a... I also like to invite Dr. Ferdinand Ayapo, Technical Advisor to the Director General NDPC. Ah, he just walked in. He has been invited.
Which one then? Okay.
Mr. Nesamaku, Director of ICT in National Youth Authority. Mr. Usukeja, Senior Statistician, Ghana State Council. Ladies and gentlemen, these are guests, men and gentlemen and lady will be speaking to us in a couple of minutes on this particular Ghana Youth Data Audit report. And to set the tone, I want to explicitly state that this report hasn't yet gone public, even though we've given you copies, and the main thing was for the discussions of today. And so to the extent that there has been any communication that you think can be improved, there is opportunity to do so. I also want us to understand that the audit report did not set out to assess credibility of institutions. It was credibility of data in those institutions. So every institution that was selected, it was selected on the basis of the respect for what they stand for and what we understand they do. And the anticipation was that in the course of their work, they may have the kind of data that might support the youth agenda in Ghana. It's important that we make that distinction, that the credibility issue is not associated and should not be associated with an assessment between and comparing institutions. And the report does not seek to state that anywhere. It is an issue of the credibility of data related to youth in those institutions. So once the data is not there, then we're not even assessing credibility of data in the institution. However, if you read any part of the document and you find that we can improve how it has been expressed, before we leave here, please let us know. We'll do all of that. I mean, we want to ensure that this is a document that serves its purpose. And it's a document that unites us for that greater purpose. And let's not get ourselves entangled with that which will not move us that. Thank you very much. And therefore, ladies first. we will now have our first panelist, Ms. Sylvia Fakos, who's speaking to us. There were a number of questions we wanted them to address, which had to do with having read the report, listened to the discussions, what their specific institutions will be doing about improving access to data on the youth, and how they can help the youth in Ghana ensure that data is used to hold responsible parties accountable for the kind of progress and development we want to see in Ghana. So she'll take the first shot. Each panelist has about 8 minutes. You said you used 3. But we want the questions answered so that we have the confidence that we have your support in moving this agenda forward and getting the kind of data and the youth on board to progress. So, Auntie Sylvia, over to you.
Thank you.
Is there another mic?
Hello? Hello? Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this very important. Let me start by saying this, that UNDP as an organization is very, very buys into the idea of transparency and the use of data, because we believe that without data, you will not know where you are going, and if you don't know where you are going, anyone can lead you there. For us, we can also to unpack the averages that we see. That is, yes, we have the hard facts. Let's unpack what do we have, what are the issues behind the averages. And in this regard, I will say that the big idea and the Ghana Youth Audit, the Ghana Data Audit that we have just all heard about is very welcoming, is very important for us, because we believe that to implement and to monitor the sustainable development goals that are still under discussions, they are still negotiating till September this year. We believe that the youth will play a very critical role, because all through the conversations we've had in terms of consultations, I mean, one big thing that people say about the MDGs is that it lacked consultations. So the UN, taking note of that, did wide consultations on the post-2015 development agenda. So if you do all recall, we had the Future We Want, the My World surveys. All these had many youth participating in them. So for us, we agree that, I mean, the roles of the youth in implementing any national agenda or international agenda, if you like, is very critical. First of all, I was asked to share my thoughts on the report. So reading through the report, like I said, I found it very welcoming. And what came up first of all was the issue of mandate. Who is mandated to collect data? But I won't hint, or I won't focus so much on that, because we've discussed extensively on that. Because I think the report itself states that, and they query themselves to that effect, that they believe sometimes institutions do not know where to get the report. And it is actually written here that NDPC as an organization, NDPC as an organization is not supposed to collect reports. So I was also wondering why, I mean, they were highlighted as not having the necessary, how do you call it, data. In terms of definition, so what came up in the report was the definition of youth. The UN says we think youth is from the ages of 15 to 24. But I can tell you that we believe that to be youthful is not really about the age. It's about things that human beings can do. So we allow for flexibility in terms of national specificities. Okay, so just to put it across, that we are not saying stick to 15 to 24, as even though it is in the UN Charter as the youthful age. National specificities allows for different definitions, and the UN recognizes that. In fact, in the youth strategy of the UNDP, we are not looking at only from 15 to 25 as the youthful age, because we realize that countries have their own, so it's broad. So in this sense, if you have, and I believe analysis could be done across board. Okay, in terms of, yes, we look at from ages 15 to 25, and then we look also at another scenario where we extend the age to about 35. Okay, so that it can actually cover what the UN defines as youthful and what countries also define as useful. The issue was also raised. Okay, so we said that, well, youthful data or the data for youth depends really on disaggregation. And we believe that if data is collected well, you'd always find the data for youth, because it's really about the age that is defining that this is data for the youth or not. So if you collect data, you are collecting the age, you are collecting the sex, you are collecting other important variables. That will allow for the disaggregation of the data, and that will make data for the youth very accessible. That's one thing that we believe to is in. There was an issue raised with the insufficiency of how do you call it, youthful issues in the target for the SDGs. And we said that, well, even though the target might not reflect concretely that the youth has to, for instance, when it comes to the poverty indicator or targets, we are talking about eliminating poverty for all people, for all people at all places. It's very inclusive, and the youth are in there, even though it is not specifically stated. But we say all is not yet lost. Negotiations are still ongoing, and I think Yes Ghana's initiative, together with can actually bring on board the open working group that has been set for Ghana to kind of put or highlight some of these things, because I can tell you we have representation from Ghana to put across what Ghana feels should be on the target, to reflect our national need, or at the international negotiations. So it's not yet lost. And I believe even the UN agencies are consulting widely on how this could be done. So even though they might not be stated in there, there's the opportunity for the youth to actively engage. Whether it has to do with, even though it was stated specifically for goals 4 and 8, whether it has to do with employment, whether it has to do with elimination of poverty, whether it has to do with climate change, we believe that roles need to be played by not only even the youth, even we are extending the consultations widely to religious groups, because we believe that they also have something to bring on board. But in this sense, we know and we agree that as youthful that we have a population, we have to take advantage of it. Okay. And so I'm saying all this not to underestimate the importance of the exercise that has been done. Okay, and there are some very useful recommendations in the report. For instance, the right to information bill. Very, very useful. It has been demonstrated in other countries that this actually led to open accountability. People are able to go and demand data. And if you refuse to give them, you have something to deal with, because it is clearly stated that to make your data available. For instance, is the case of India, where you can access data anywhere about projects that are being implemented up to even small districts and community levels. And this actually makes people hold leaders accountable for development. So also is the Youth Development Index. Great, beautiful. It would be very good to know exactly what the state of the youth is. So by the report recommending the state of the youth report for Ghana, I think is excellent. I know ISA is involved in doing the state of the Ghanaian economy report. And at the recent launch, they did state that we'll be looking at other areas, and probably with partnership to this organization, they can take that up with collaboration from and other youth societies, And also they introduced they spoke about the options for actions in the report, which I find very laudable. The youth are, like they say, restless, and they have so much energy. And at UNDP, we believe really that the youth, coupled with innovation or technology, is just a bright idea for getting the results that we want to see happen in our societies. So also the second question that was put to me was the role of UNDP as a public source of open data. And I would like to state that what informs our programming from international to national is our strategic plan. And our strategic plan sees and admits to this fact that the youth plays critical role. And I can tell you, based on this strategic plan, a youth strategy was prepared to accompany the strategic plan. And in that strategic plan, we see and we have the stance, just like I've just said, that innovation or ICT together with youth is just the transformation, brings about the transformation that we need. I mean, the principles are there. We are looking at human rights, we are looking at gender equality, sustainability, participation, innovation. We are looking at South-South cooperation, volunteerism, which I believe is low key. It's on a very low key in Ghana, and also intergenerational knowledge and working with and working for the young people. So at the last principle, we are talking about not only doing something for the young people, but actually involving the young people, you know, to find solutions for their problems. And the approaches that we use are from capacity development to advocacy and mainstreaming, and then also to thought leadership. We believe the youth have to take their own, you know, they have to take their lives, or if you like, they have to take the headroom in terms of developmental issues. And also we are talking about national policy. So these are the approaches we are looking. Even when we are building capacity for the youth, we are also thinking we have to advocate for them to mainstream into activities, and then also for them to lead, and also make sure that there's the necessary policy to cover them. In terms of what we have done as UNDP to support the data that we have, so that it reflects on the youth issues, we've done so many things. For instance, we support national organizations. We don't collect, even though we don't collect the data ourselves, we support national organizations like the GSS. We support civil society organizations to collect data. Okay, and in that data, there's a breakdown. Okay, there's the breakdown, although there's the disaggregation, which I believe if you need to access, you can also access. We've done a couple of things in terms of with CSOs, and I can state categorically that even with Yes Ghana, we've done great things. I mean, if you all look in your pamphlet that you have, you saw the youth manifesto that UNDP supported in bringing out. We empower the youth to go around districts to even involve themselves in district planning and budgeting. Currently, we are at the district level actively engaging the youth to learn how to budget, to plan, and also do it themselves. You know, so on that note, I'll say that now we are doing some great things, but we look forward to doing some other great things. More specifically, also looking at the pointers that the report had shown us in terms of political governance, the data gaps that has to do with the youth in terms of political governance, in terms of health, in terms of labor statistics. But really, if we should get it right, we should get it right from the basics. We should get it right from the basics. So we don't believe in duplicating effort, but you know, forming the recipes in terms of effort to get the necessary result.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we'll take all the panelists. Please note your questions and issues. And just so that we are all on board, let me go over the 3 key areas we are expecting them to speak to. First is, how does the Youth Data Audit report affect them and their institution? That's one. The next thing was, as an institution, what is their role, if any at all, as a public source of youth data? And finally, which is our key area of concern as we want to build capacity for the youth and ensure that we have accountability, is how do they intend to contribute to improving access to youth data, promoting the utilization of youth data, and harnessing youth potential for accountability in the post-2015 framework. This is where we want to land. So just go over them again. First of all, how does this report affect them and their thoughts on it? Secondly, if they have any role as a public source of youth data. And the third one, which is a key one, is if they have any role to support the improving of access to youth data, promoting the utilization of youth data, and facilitating the harnessing of youth potential for accountability in the post-2015 framework. So at this juncture, we'll ask Dr. Dr. Yako to also make his presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. To be very short. Now, the first question that we address is about how this report affects our perception of these reports. To be fair with you, we look at this report as one of the critical reports that will go into our development planning and very useful, I think I must admit. However, we also look at the issues of, as I mentioned in the opening remarks, that it's like we compare apples and bananas to draw a conclusion, which to us was not. So I think that is the concern that we look at. So we feel that this is a very good project. There's a room for comparison, but we should have looked at institutions, identify institutions that are required by Ghana law to collect information. So when you identify that institution, let's say assume that in Ghana is only Ghana service, you identify, then you administer the questionnaire on all the papers. Because if you indicate, we call it, Ghana Health Service, you go and ask information about, let me say, crime, and those things will tell you no. But if you come to NDPC and want information on, you train people to collect data for you, you say no. So that will give us a you go to ISA, you also say no. So 2 out of 5 will give us bad ranking. So I think we need to look at that issue. So let me go back to. So if we agree on that, the first thing I want to.
Sorry, can you hear him?
Yeah.
Okay. If it's maybe I should give you mine.
Okay, then I think I'm. Is it working? Yes. Okay. Now, before we draw the conclusion, we want to first, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, to just tell you what we are supposed to do. And our duty is just to advise on development plan in the country. So our mandate is not about data collection. We are the development plan for the country. But we also have functions that we perform. One of the functions that we perform is to monitor, evaluate, and coordinate all development policies in Ghana. That is one issue. We also prepare broad national development plans for the country. Then, then we also formulate comprehensive national planning strategies and to ensure that all the strategies are incorporated with the MDGs to carry out the development, and among others that we also look at. So that is our mandate. Now, if you look at that mandate, you look at the reports. If you talk about data, we are just talking about information. And this project is just information about the youth, which you can use any age bracket. He said you can go beyond, you can take, and depending on how you got those information. Now, the next thing that we will look at is that the importance of those data to us as an organization. Now, the youth data we may classify will help us in policy formulation. When we want to formulate government policy, it is very critical for us. So that's why we said it's a very important assignment that you have taken. We're talking about the implementation at MGC level. It's also very critical. And for our monitoring and evaluation purposes, it also becomes very critical. So we can, with all certainty, say that it's a very viable and critical thing that we need at the, how do you call it? We need at the center. Now, the important thing that you ask us is that if you ask us to address how we identify the gaps from the research, I look at the gap we are talking as inadequacy of information about the youth in the country. And even some cases where there exist, the inaccessibilities, and those are what you identify as a gap from your study, among others. Now, then the next thing that we also look at is the role that NDPC will have to play in doing this project. I think that's the critical thing, so I'll come back. Now, one thing that we do is that because we do the planning for all MDs and everything, we normally request all MDs to generate and supply data to us. That is our mandate. Now, what we can do, and MDs say, no, if we want to do planning and we don't have this indicator, we can make a request and tell you that maybe Ghana, we always work with Ghana Statistical Service. Like what they have now, we say, okay, we are developing the Ghana Shared Development Agenda. Please, we need information on these indicators, and we work together as a team, and we agree. So then they go and get the information for us. So we normally work with the MDCs to advise them as to the kind of data they should be able to collect. And they have been doing that for us. Now, then what we also have in NDPC, we just started recently, is that we have been getting the data from them as to when we need it. And the moment we use it, it's like, oh, you use it and it's so. But now we are also having, let me call it a backup or a national database, which is not by law, because of other functions. Now all the data that we get, we still keep it. So sometimes people will try to cross-check, but that is not our mandate, but just for backup purposes. So we are still doing that, and people, I don't know, when we get to that level that they are still developing a web page, that all those data can also be hooked to the website. Now, if it's hooked to our website, then it means we also promote utilization from those who just go to NDPC website. You can get all the national data from there. Then the other thing we also do, we normally prepare the annual progress reports. Now, and then we have some indicators on the youth that we use. So what we are going to do, that's the discussion I had, and then to also promote utilization, is that based on those indicators that you mentioned, that we realize that the Ghana Statistical Service do not have, in collaboration with them, we are not connecting, of other agencies, we can then advise or maybe had a discussion to include all those things. Now the utilization will be in writing our annual progress report. Those indicators will be used. So if you don't have something on security, in doing the annual progress report, a session will be dedicated to that session. Now we have some few on unemployment and those things, but there's room for expansion. And that will also come from some of the individuals, so that we'll go to, how do you call it? Now, then we also now try to have the research-based, how do you call it, planning. It is good that, because now that these issues are, I know normally what we do is that when we are doing the group planning, we use the data from the MDGs and Ghana Statistical Service. We do the analysis, whatever, then it goes into our planning. Now, with the new indicators that we are finding out, which are so critical to go to that level, it means information will include it, collect the data on them, do the analysis. So it means in our short term, medium term, and possibly the long term, which again, everybody will be dead by then. But in that agenda, we'll get those information and to go into our planning. So as a whole, I can just say, because we are involved as planning at the national level, our role will be to work with the other MDC and then Ghana Statistical Service for the data collection and then the utilization by making it available. I guess I will stop here. I want to come to open discussion and we'll talk more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for him. Thank you for a succinct presentation. Now we will have from our National Youth Authority, the National Youth Authority, our National Youth Authority. Mr. Nesamaku, please, your audience.
Thank you. If it is our National Youth Authority, then we all know what National Youth Authority does, right? I mean, a document, 67-page document, mentioning your clientele severally, mentioning your institution severally. What do you have to say about it? It's good. It's highlighting your issues, it's highlighting your work, and it's highlighting the gaps that probably exist in your work. We're happy to have this document reach us, and I was detailed to study it and make remarks. I believe that as much as that has been said already, that the choice of the institutions and all that was not directly related to the indicators that was being looked at. I mean, the document says it all. Where is the youth data? Who has it? Who doesn't have it? And if who has it, the institution that has it, are they sharing? These are all issues that are critical. I think it is a starting point for all of us in the youth development platform to answer and indeed find answers to the questions. I believe with data, we'll do much more. I mean, the data experts are there. Data does everything. You can't just do anything. You plan. What do you plan with? Data. So as a country, we need to really work on that. From our role as an institution, we believe that our mandate, as circulated in the Decree 241, states clearly that we should facilitate, supervise, collaborate, and coordinate all youth development programs in the country. And indeed, establish and maintain a register and a database of youth groups for effective youth development programming. And indeed, that is what we're doing. We through registration of all youth groups, have a database of the organizations, where they are, what they do, how they do what they do, and everything. Indeed, as Kelly stated, it did help in the outcome of the survey. That's what the authority does in its own way, as providing information on the youth front. And not only that, we have quarterly meetings with stakeholders on the regional level, where youth organizations, youth-led, youth-focused organizations working in the area of reproductive health and other areas meet under the umbrella of our regional directorates, have monthly meetings, and share information and data, so that we are able to tell what happens in the region in one area or the other. This the National Youth Authority does. And as to how the National Youth Authority can help improve the collection of and access to data, we believe clearly that from the recommendation outlined in the report, and the NYA, with the support from other stakeholders, will be able to produce all the relevant information on young people. Because following the launch of the implementation plan for the National Youth Policy, we believe it's going to be an evidence-based activity that will generate enough data for use. So together with our stakeholders, we believe that we will make all that it takes to get the data necessary, relevant for youth programming in the country. So that's about the National Youth Authority, and it will take you and I mean the partners in the youth development field, to make this happen. Let's all get on board. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And will you sit? Oh, okay. Mr. Rusikeja is going to make a presentation to us. Let's welcome him for a round of applause. And can we have the presentation go up?
Okay, thank you very much. That is our mandate at GSS, to produce and disseminate statistical data on every facet of the economy of Ghana. And so, talking about social issues, demographic issues, health issues, youth issues, that is what we're supposed to do. To make sure that we help planners and decision makers monitor and evaluate national programs and initiatives. By so doing, we generate a lot of indicators to identify and target, to monitor and evaluate interventions, and then we also inform policy design, whether we deepening policy or trying to shift policy. Yeah, so there are a number of sources of data, and we usually will have primary source and secondary source. Primary source, when we go out ourselves to collect statistical information, and then secondary data, that is where we go to the various producers of statistics, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, and so on and so forth, to collect the information they have. And so I put down a few of the surveys that we have. Ghana Living Standard Survey, Ghana Child Labor Survey, Demographic and Health Survey, Multiple Indicator Cluster Survey, Population and Housing Census, Business Establishment Survey. MS, we getting it from the Ministry of Education. And so for all these sources that I've talked about, we're saying that we have youth data available, except the ones we get from the institutional sources. If it's survey data, one key question we ask is about the age of the respondent. And so once we have the age of the respondents, then whatever age category we are interested in, we should be able to generate information about. But then the youth statistics is limited. Limited in the sense that if you go back to these surveys that we conduct, each one of them has a focus. We have a set of objectives that we want to achieve in conducting these surveys. And usually, the focus is not about the youth when it comes to these surveys. If we take the Ghana Living Standard Survey, for instance, the focus is trying to monitor poverty situation in Ghana. Child labor, demographic and health issues, you get them. So that is the limitedness I'm talking about. But the point is that once there's a, for instance, if you take Ghana Living Standard Survey, any indicator that you can get from Ghana Living Standard Survey, you can get the corresponding youth data for that indicator. That's the point I want to make. How do we improve access to youth data? I think that should be more collaborative. We do that anytime we conduct the survey or census. We bring together stakeholders, we discuss, see the kind of questions that we want to ask in the field. And so having access to youth data, I think that we should be more collaborative. For instance, when it comes to publications, I think it's only last year that we were able to come out with a report on the youth from the census data. In the past, we haven't been doing that. But if you reach stakeholders like youth organization association, then we can be thinking through what kind of publication based on the data available to have publications on that. We also have a Ghana Info database. That is a database of indicators. So we have constructed a number of indicators and you put them in this database. People can have access to them. But again, we have people in the office who are constructing these indicators. And so sometimes the focus is not on the youth. And therefore, if we meet as stakeholders, then we can see what kind of indicators that we should put in the database to help the youth in that direction. Then I think that we should also, we have been doing that, but I think that we should be targeting the youth this time. What we call statistical literacy, trying to educate the people on statistics, the methods, the standards, concepts and definitions. Just this morning, if you recall, the issue of how we measure unemployment came up. And Statistical Service, for instance, is following a standard. And we haven't debated over the years how we measure unemployment rates in the country. And so these are some of the things that we think that people need to be educated on, so that even the issue that came up that we want to train people in the districts to collect data. So that statistical service should be involved such that we follow standards in terms of methodology, in terms of definitions and concepts, so that whatever we are measuring at the district level should be able to compare very well with what we are measuring at the regional and national level. And then I think it's the project as we have initiated is also a good one, because it also helps us to identify the institutions that can help in bringing together producers of youth data, and that we need to be doing that more. Promoting the utilization of youth data, I think that we need to assist in building technical capacity. So when it comes to survey design and methodologies, data collection and analysis, we need to be supporting that. And we need to also collaborate with MDAs to conduct specific statistical programs. As I said, usually the surveys that we conduct have their own focuses. And so collaborating with MDAs, then we should be able to know what kind of statistical programs we need to embark on to help the youth. Yes, the report clearly identifies a number of gaps, and mainly, I think the reason I said is because the surveys are specific to some issues. And so we think that as a country, we need to do more by providing resources to be able to conduct some of these surveys, specifically to address the issues of the youth. One of the strategic objectives of the ESS in our corporate plan is to have diversified and well-disseminated ESS products and services. And we think that this project, has come at the right time to also have that thinking that we need to go beyond what we have been doing in the past and bring on board the issues such as the youth and other areas. Accountability, we think that democracy entails the obligation to be accountable, and we think that the post-2015 is creating a new demand that the national statistical system must satisfy. Talking about the youth data. Actually, I haven't assessed the indicators that we find in the sustainable development indicators. But usually when people say that the youth data is not available, they think that, for instance, if you come to statistical service, because you haven't generated an indicator with that age bracket, then it's not there. But as I indicated, once an indicator can be constructed, and once we can get that information from a survey or census data, then we can generate that same information for that youth bracket. And so we think that in addition to the growing demand, the needs for information of the civil society organizations, the private sector, the media, as well as issues related to the youth. And so we need high quality statistical information which should be accessible to all users, which is also feasible in comparison with the new needs, which will help deal with these interests. We need to be careful in the way we also construct our indicators. I think that was also part of the reason why we have gaps. For instance, I found that majority of the gaps we find in tables 4 and 5. And if you look at some of the indicators that have been constructed, sometimes if the indicators are not well constructed, then measuring it becomes a challenge. For instance, when Madame was talking earlier, she was saying that, and that is one of the challenges our data service faces. Sometimes, for instance, when it comes to youth, you have various definitions. And so, which one do we put out there? The Ghana one. And we don't have the Ghana one. Until recently, it's until recently we had the 15 to 35. And so, if you look at the youth report, for instance, we provided for 15 to 24 and 15 to 35. You know, that to satisfy a lot of people. And so, that has also been one of the challenges. And we think that when we collaborate, we will be able to address some of these issues. In conclusion, we think that the need for statistics on the youth have been very enforced at this forum, at the global, national, and whatever levels. We need data to support planning and taking decisions. And so it provides an opportunity to review the data needs as the SDGs seek to do. And we need to highlight the priority areas for particular growth. I thank you for your attention.
I think we can go a little bit. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Emmanuel to bring on board technology issues. And whilst he's preparing to come, can we just stretch? Let's just stand for a second. When you sit for a while, because your brain may go slow. So stretch your arms, stretch your legs, do anything that gets the blood circulating well enough. And after you've done that for about a minute, you can sit down. Thank you very much, Emmanuel.
Thank you very much. I think you agree with me that although it seems calm now, we are really drawing some really great moments from all the 4 presentations we've had. And I know you have noted questions to answer. That's the last part of our day. But just before we start with those questions, I want us to give, with your permission, 3 people whose contributions can even further help us to analyze this whole thing in a more comprehensive way. The first 2 will be people in the technology aspect of things. So Nehemiah will take 5 minutes to just tell us what he does in terms of presenting and outreaching using social media, using blogging, using all of the new media platforms that are available in 5 minutes, not more. And it's just so we can have a taste, and if people are interested in discussing more, exchange business cards, we can even organize a full meeting that you can speak alone. And then Voto Mobile uses technology also for the research aspects. So how can we even deploy Voto Mobile when we do a next phase of this report? So would you like to come here? I think it's better if you just come here and take 5 minutes. And the last will be Doug. I had a chit chat with you, if you don't mind. Just take 5 minutes or less, a few thoughts in general that you may not get in 5 minutes if everybody was competing for the question time. Thank you very much. So let's take it Nehemiah. Sorry, what's the Louis? Louis, and then Doug. Thank you.
Hope you're not afraid of this one.
Okay, so like I said earlier, I wear 3 hats. I'm a software engineer. I run Accra solutions. I'm an open data evangelist. You can call me that. Trying to build the ecosystem for open data. So I have a platform called Odipro. We take data from Parliament and make that available for citizens in a much more consumable format. So the handsets, we take that, we scan that, and format it nicely for you. So you can go to odipro.org and look at that. I've also worked with civil society organizations around the country those in the area of research, taking the data and making that much more simple in terms of building visualization. So we train civil society organizations, we get them to visualize their data. Because you realize that if you're online, people who use data online, people relate to data when they are visual. If you put text on there, very few people will look at it. But if I put an image out there, you have so many people relating to it. So if your data was put into infographics or something that was more simpler, you get people relating to it. So we train civil society organizations to do that. We built a platform called Inform Ghana, where the data that we take from these organizations, we've taken data from government organizations as well, and think tanks. So we put that out there, make it simple, and get media to have conversations around that. So promoting data-driven journalism. But I think I should be talking about using social media. In any case, you get people sharing information faster with social media. These technologies are in the hands of people. If you wanted anybody to verify the data that statistics service put out there based on some ministry making that available, you get people on the ground using the simple tools that they have to do that quickly. It's just that it might not be structured and they might be even irresponsible in the manner that they put that out there. But once they are guided, I'm sure they can do the right thing. There's a project I implemented in Nigeria where people were trained to put election data out there using Twitter and Facebook. So you could just do an at mention and we'll pull that out into a database and that will be structured on another platform for people to look at. And when you look at these things, we have these tools. And I believe that we can use these tools to do so much. The statistics service, for instance, aside waiting for the secondary sources, data sources, maybe you could, some of us, we could help you structure certain platforms where you're getting data on a daily basis. So you mandate, you make these organizations obliged to enter the information. So if it's a health service, how many people visited the hospital today, how many of them had malaria, how many of them came with HIV. I mean, this will even help in terms of discovering, what do you call it, the pandemic, or earlier than later. That will cause the country more trouble. So there are things that we can do with technology, and we shouldn't limit ourselves to just waiting to do surveys and long-term stuff, but doing things that are more frequent. It will also help people from doing much more data-driven, or should I say data-informed decisions. And NDPC here, they are influencing strategy. They're also doing monitoring evaluation, but I don't think that they have to wait for those long reports and data to take these decisions. It should be a daily thing. I should be able to know what is going on every day. And if we use technology, which we have, which is simple, which is not expensive, I mean, some of these things, we've done them. We started to go without. We were buying the handsets. Parliament won't give us the handsets. So we're buying them. We imported the printer to print them and scan them. We're using our money because we felt that we go back and go for radio. And he says, according to the handset of so and so, what is a handset? This man, why? But that's the thing. And I think that there are a lot of people who want to use technology to help.
Let's put our hands together. I think the sharing is very constructive and we are making headway. Yes, we.
Great, thank you so much, Manuel, for giving me this platform. So I just wanted to basically share with everyone what Mobile does in case it might be helpful, because we heard a lot about this morning about holes in the data, and there might be a few of those data gaps that could be filled by a platform like Mobile. So basically, what we offer is a platform that allows it, makes it very easy to organize SMS or IVR, basically voice-based surveys. And so the way we've been doing this, there's a few case studies. So you can do national polls, and we've been able to show that they're actually statistically significant in Ghana since the mobile penetration is so high. So you can actually do mobile polls. So we've done some with City FM, for example, on corruption, on the price of electricity, or things like that.
with the World Bank, of course, with UNICEF. There's also the possibility of doing sort of citizen journalism or citizen-based accountability. So you could have, you know, a panel of youth that could be disseminated across the country, and you basically can either ask them questions on a regular basis or give them a hotline, basically a missed call or a short code that they can call in to report any kinds of issues. And so those could be potentially great ways to be able to do this. It's the benefit of Ghana is, one, you have the cheapest airtime in all of Africa. So this is you're very, very lucky from that perspective. You also have one of the most engaged population in all of Africa. Whenever we survey a whole bunch of other countries, the response rates in Ghana are the highest that we see anywhere else. People are excited to voice their opinions, and so your response rates are high, which means the cost per response is actually quite cheap. And we're maybe one of the things that we could do is, since we would really love for you guys to experiment with our platform as much as possible, how about we do this, that if you want to start using Google Mobile, and if you go through Emmanuel, then we're going to waive our software fees completely. So then the only thing you have to pay for is your airtime on the platform.
Yeah.
So then you can actually, because we're really hoping so that, you know, next time we have this meeting, we don't have to talk about data gaps that much. We can talk about where we are able to fill those data gaps through different kinds of technology tools. Good?
I think just to chip in, take a look at what's the website? Is it .com or .org? Please have a look at it. You will be impressed with the work they are doing, and we intend, can I say that, to see how they can deploy that on the big idea. So please have a look at it for yourselves as well.
There's one more person.
Yes, that's
Yeah. Just put our hands together from Lisa. We're just sharing ideas on what can be done. Collaboration, synergy, and moving ahead. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Unfortunately, I didn't have access to the report, so I'm just talking based on what I'm hearing from here. All I want to say is that just two things, the publications, and there's a lot of research that has been done, very vital information out there, but it's not being used. So I can see the energy with which he did a presentation, that youth energy was there, so that shows, I mean, the kind of interest you have. But you'd be surprised that you get vital data and it's sitting somewhere. There's a lot of information that is sitting there, because I don't think that you'll be able to collect as much data as GSS does, you know. And representation is very important, because if they realize that the data that you have collected or you have on you is not representative enough, they can use it for policy. So that is something that you have to also look at. Apart from that, it's very important to look beyond just publishing and then look at other methods of dissemination where your voice can be heard, because that is one of the key areas of this, program. Is you want the youth voice to be heard, and I think you should do that. And I also think that if you are able to get this in connection with probably some of the policies that is there about youth, because Ghana has moved on, and a lot of the information or the policies about youth is archaic, I would say. So if you are able to, you know, so if you are able to, I mean, sometimes just suppose what you have with the available policy, which is not working, because I mean, we now have a whole lot of gender issues, and you know, sometimes when they talk about gender, you doesn't even come in. But gender is just not about women and men, but it's now limited to only women, I would say, you know. So I think you should be able to take this across boards, and then, I mean, if you have some very good data, and then you look at the policy. I mean, this policy was even before we had independence. So how does it work today that now Ghana has moved on? We are talking about, I mean, look at the kind of technology that we have. And the youth are all into all these things. So, I mean, I think that will also send a very strong signal that, I mean, and decision makers can also use. But let me just chip in this before I say that. I mean, we are all in very commanding positions, institutions that we may be doing some consultancies or, I mean, collecting data one day or the other. So if you are engaged to do some work and somebody comes in with in terms of reference, you should be able to to look at it, to analyze it within the context of your country, and then know that this sense of that, I mean, you can always engage the person, you can always talk with the person, and then make sure that what he has, maybe he has no knowledge of what is pertaining in your country, because if I'm collecting data on a particular issue in Ghana, where I go for the data. If I go to South Africa or I go to Uganda or Zambia, I may be going to a different institution altogether. So please, it is very, very important that when we are doing something, we try to find out. And baseline survey is very, very important. When you do baseline survey, you'll be able to get the initial information before you even go ahead. So this is just what I would do. Thank you.
Thank you all so very much. And I'd like to make a few comments before we open the floor for feedback. Fortunately, we have just about 15 minutes. I think that this has been a very fantastic time of sharing. What's important is the areas of synergy. A lot of synergy has come out, and I think that we need to build on that. So the first thing is the synergy that has come here, and I'm hoping that as we capture the content, we'll have a report that enables us to say that there will be a follow-up meeting. Emmanuel, there has to be a follow-up meeting to build on the energy here, especially the key stakeholders who have demonstrated both in their presentations and by the comments they've made that they're excited about this and they want to build on it for the youth of Ghana. If we wait too long, that fire might die. So a follow-up meeting where we can bring the key players in it around, I think that's the first thing, a lot of synergy. Second thing, is obvious that if there could be stakeholder meetings, especially of those who can make this process come out much better. I really love the NDPC presentation about specifics that can be done. GSS2 has done the same. NYA is just waiting to benefit from all of this. I'm sure NYA will be so happy with, yes, you should give them an award, you know. Yes, Ghana, for this fantastic platform. So stakeholder meetings moving ahead, maybe some quarterly ones. And I'm saying these things because sometimes when we don't think through them, we let them lie. And finally, before I open the floor for questions and responses, just to indicate that I think that we will put clearly in the document the issue of mandate. And so that there's an understanding that these other 4 institutions don't by law have that mandate. I think that probably the thinking was that it is possible that data is moved from local levels or gathered in part of their work, and it might just be sitting there and we can pick it up. That was the thinking. And so honestly speaking, as a consultant, it's not about not having interrogated the TOR, but we honestly felt that these are that's said. It is possible to have data on you. Let's go and check it out. It is possible that NDPC, because of the local government structures and the reports that are sent to NDPC. So mandate was not a question at all. And forgive us if that has become a bone of contention. The truth is, we just wanted to find out where can we get data for the youth of Ghana. And that was purely it, nothing else. And any apologies that have to be given, I give here and now. Now the floor is open, and as many who have questions and want clarifications and want to make contributions, the ball is in your court.
Thank you very much. My name is Vera. My question goes to Dr. Ferdinand. I want to find out what's next if you ask DSS and there's no data. What do you do? Because according to the presentation, we realized that under the political and civil participation, there's no data from DSS. And then under employment and economic opportunities, one of the indicators, which is youth in entrepreneurship, too, there's no data. But we realize that these are some of the issues that are critical to Ghana, which even led to Yes Initiative, not Yes Ghana, Yes Initiative. The government is trying the GDAS, youth and employment. These are issues that we are looking at, youth in entrepreneurship, and there's no data. So how do we advise on policy formulation, monetary evaluation if there's no data inside that? So what next? If we ask them and there's no data, we need to get together. What's the way forward? And I would like Dr. also to answer that if they come and there's no data, what do we do? Must we rely on you, or you also recommend that some institutions like NDPC and the NYA should also have data available that young people can also get the information. Thank you.
Maybe we'll have a series, a round of questions. Or
okay.
Any other hand up? There's one there. Maybe we can take at least 4 and then.
Thank you very much. I want to ask my question. The rep from Statistical Service and that of NDPC, whoever is affected, with the issue of top one. Very clear that this information will come in the form of data. So I want to know how often is the planning. For instance, let's say within the next 2 years or within every year, NDPC has an agenda or a specific area to tackle. Do you wait for that year to then inform Statistical Service that we require this information to advise government on what to do to ensure we achieve this development? Or there's an avenue where you have in-house statisticians or in-house reps from Statistical Service in your institutions where they are in terms of your planning and information you might require. They do the planning with you so that it's the beginning of every year where Statistical Service is supposed to undertake their research procedure. They will inculcate your agenda just to make sure that you have the necessary information to undertake your policy advice. And another question I want to ask, unfortunately the person did not make a submission. I thought you have made a submission. The one from the Ghana Open Data Initiative or whatever is the name. Because I wasn't too sure of the name. I have come to realize that one of the difficulties is not necessarily because there isn't data, but because you don't have access to the data, like it was mentioned by the doctor from ISA. You have so many people who have quality information, but yet the information just sits on their computer. And we stand the risk of even using those information because their platforms are not available. I am aware somewhere in South Africa, they have something known as a data sharing site. And procedures are there, at least to streamline and audit, just to avoid charge being posted there. So if under that initiative, we could have that site and digitize the process, so that when you want to have information, you don't necessarily need to go through all the bureaucracies to the extent that you might even lose the significance of the information you require regarding the time you want to implement it. So if the rep from Ghana Open Data Initiative could also throw more light on that, I think it will help. Thank you.
There's a hand there. It's a package, and maybe we can use this one.
Thank you very much. My question rather will go to other yes.
Please, can we have your names and organizations? And I think we missed that. Maybe after you can just catch a few. That's
what I've already mentioned my name earlier, Nicholas. Yeah. My question.
Organization.
Transparency and accountability. Well, this question, I don't know whether to put it to rather the consultants or yes. I think to make our meeting here very relevant, to me, it's not about NDPC or NYE or Statistical Service. Actually, data itself, for data to be more relevant, I think it must be citizens driven. What do I mean by that? Actually, the indicators that we are looking at that are relevant for us, the way we need it is the way we tell them. Because if we don't tell them the way we want it, they may bring out something that may not be relevant to us. As he's talking about employment data, a typical example is the employment data. They will say, oh, unemployment is 5%, and everybody's happy. But in actual fact, something is around 30 or 35%. And so the way I think for this forum or for this discussion to be relevant, we must really look at 4 or 5 key areas that affect the youth, and then come out with specific indicators that are relevant to those ones and clearly define them in such a way that nobody will just go out and pick any data and come out and put it in our face and just say, this is it. So I'm thinking that's why NDPC and NYA that we want, or ISA or whatever we want to put the blame on, I think it should rather come from us and push it to them so that we all move forward. Thank you very much.
Great. I think that we will now take some responses. And thank you. I'll answer that. I think it's one of the recommendations. So we'll have our panelists respond.
Okay, thank you. For the first question, it's an interesting question. If it's not available, what's happened? Now, let me just for planning purposes, NDPC, we don't just sit there and decide to plan. It's a continual process. Even as I'm speaking today, there's a series of meetings still going on. So what normally happens is that we start with all the MJs, including statistics, which is our key. And during the process, we all agree on the indicators and the data they have available. And as I mentioned in my presentation, is that when we realize that, okay, we may need this information in our planning and we don't have, then during that meeting, we then alert, how do you call it, Ghana Statistical Service, that this will be good for Ghana. So please, if you can get us that information, and they do so. So, time with your question, the, planning is a continual process. That's why we have evaluation and monitoring units there. They continue to bring an input every day. And even currently, we are trying to look at the development plan for Ghana. And we are still having the consultation. So planning is not about today, and then we stop and wait. If it's 3 years, then we plan. But it's a continuous process that we are looking at. So I think the rest I will leave it for my colleagues.
Yeah, hello. Just to add my voice to, if it's not ready, what's next? Yeah, if it's not ready, you wait. Yeah, typical case for the MDG tracking. You know, as I'm speaking with you now, we are now preparing the MDG report for 2013 because we rely on national data, and until the GLSS 6 was available, we couldn't have gone ahead to prepare the report. Okay, so if it's not ready, you would have to wait. So timely data is important, just as much as to kind of reflect what is currently happening in the country.
Yes, I think NDPC was talking about collaboration we always have when it comes to national indicators. So let us get that understanding. We have national indicators, and people also are interested in some other indicators. And so for that, those national indicators, we discuss and make sure that even if they are not available, then the next survey that we conduct, we make sure we slot in persons that should help us measure those indicators. But sometimes some other people also request for data. And for instance, those tables 4 and 5, if you came to Statistical Service asking for these indicators, obviously they will not be available. And as Madam just said, if they are not available, they are not available. There's nothing that we can do. And so if people come and the data is not available, we tell them they are not available. If it's possible, we can have it for them, we made for them. And I think Issa also made an important point that the representation of that data is very, very important. So that Statistical Service will not put out any data. First of all, you know, I talked about methodology. So that if the data is not something that we think that can help policy, we will not put it out there. And so ISA, I know, and other agencies also collect some information, except that they are limited. Those are usually limited to certain areas. For instance, they will be doing some research in some selected districts, and that will not be representative for Ghana. And so we can also make use of, when we're talking about credibility of those data, yes, they are credible, except that you cannot use that to represent Ghana or the region if the sample selected was not focusing on a region or Ghana. And so there are so many data that are available that we can make use of, except that we need to know the metadata about that, the coverage and other issues, so that we know where we are making use of the information. And then it also has something to do with resources. I think the question that my brother said. Sometimes some agencies or institutions will come to statistical service to say that they want to research into some areas, and we offer our technical support so that whatever data they collect will, at the end of the day, be usable and credible. And so your agency, for instance, can collaborate with statistical service in that regard, so that we identify the kind of indicators of interest, and then we go into an agreement and conduct some kind of research to support. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I mean, I refuse to bring it up in the first time I had the opportunity of speaking. It's about really institutionalizing data collection, backed by policy. Okay, so that really, if you have the data sitting in your computer, you are mandated, or you are, yeah, you are forced to share, more or less. So if we have this, like I said, institutionalizing the data collection, and we have the right policy backing it to urge people to share it, whether they like it or not, for transparency's sake. I mean, yeah.
I'd like to build on. Okay, all right. Okay, let me take the last question. I'll just. Oh, address to him. Okay, so he can respond. Okay, all right. I have run out of time.
15 minutes.
Thank you, my brother. As I've started from the beginning, I was trying to introduce Ghana Open Data Initiative to the House. Actually, the main objective is to make data sets available to the citizens. That is, government data sets, whereby citizens, as you said, will not go through any procedure to go for that information. For instance, data set from Ghana Statistics will be available on Ghana Open Data Initiative. That is a need for open data, which is not something, how do you call it, common. Now in the country, many people don't understand why open data. Sometimes you go for the data set, the government sectors will be saying that these ones, they actually sell them. So why are we coming for this? So I know you sell them, but this is government project. So we need it. So far as it's being collected, government paid for it. It must be what? Available to the public to use, to question it. What we plan doing is, we actually created a password, how do you call it, username for all the what? Government public sectors, whereby they will actually upload without us going for the data set. That is what we are done right now. But for now, no education has been done to let these people start doing it directly. So I think in future, we'll look at all those things so that any data set being looked for by the citizens will be gotten from our portal. I think that is the step. And that is it. Data.gov.gh. When you put there right now, you get data set that we have there. And we are still working to get more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to re-emphasize two things that have come up earlier. I think that the youth of Ghana should take up this issue of a policy that institutionalizes the sharing of data. I'm quite sure whether it is ISA or whether it's NDPC, there will be some data, maybe outside their current mandate, that may help solve some issues. And let's begin to look at that. That's something we can look at. I want to specifically address the issue raised about our own citizens indicators, and just to read out recommendation 2 of the report. To improve the scope of relevant youth data categories and indicators, the National Youth Authority, together with key stakeholders, including youth-focused and youth-led organizations like Yes Ghana, should work together to clearly define key youth data indicator areas and by default categories for collection, collation, reporting, and it should engage the Ghana Statistical Service on this. So it is there, and we just need to communicate some more. I want to wrap up by just saying that, yes, Ghana, please, it will be very exciting to see the people who have committed themselves to supporting this process, the youth process, meet again. So maybe you need a national youth data platform that allows these people to continue sitting and to fine-tune what they have said they are committed to today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please help us. Let's do it bigger. This one is to all of us, all of us, all of us. And let's do a big, big one for our panelists, big one for our panelists. Okay, it's not a check, but I just wanted to. We have, I think, under 3-5 minutes to leave this place. Otherwise, the British Council will charge us double. Thank you very much for coming. We would have time to talk more details about next steps. So what I'm going to do is to generate some kind of an email-based discussion that Pauline will initiate. But just to highlight, number one, going forward, please read the report. We recognize that most of you got it only in the last 2 weeks, some of you 1 week, and those who have been delegated by the institution, sometimes, I think Dr. Oja said she got the report only today. So please take the chance now to really digest it so that the discussion we will have on email and via other means can be even more engaging. Number one. Number two, I would like to request the kindness of the people who have represented the key institutions. So we know this region, NDPC, ISE, GSS, GODI, NYA. But I would like to include UNDP and all the other key states would have a small meeting in one of our offices in the coming week. Could be at UNDP, it could be at NDPC, could be at, yes, Ghana is a bit far.
Oh, NYA.
Like NYA, we have because we have very nice air-conditioned conference room.
He's gladly provided a place.
You know, your place too, Charlie. So, but the idea is that you agree with me that to take this process forward, these institutions would have to take a bold decision to consolidate the positions they have taken here. And we'll do that, of course, with the consultant. In the end, first of all, the report will come out the best. And secondly, everybody seems to be talking. One of the outcomes of this meeting, it seems, you have captured that in your report, is that everybody thinks we need a next phase of this process, which will be even firmer than it is now, and which will capture issues about credibility and make ISE and NDPC more comfortable that they were not being compared to, say, GSS and the rest. So that's the second thing. The final point I would like to make is, as you know, this report only forms the first activity of a 2-year project we call the Big Idea. And so for the young people in this room, watch out for the advertisement when we are recruiting the 100 candidates who we will call the accountability advocates. They are the ones that will drive the process. And you might be interested, if you're in this room and you fall in the youth bracket, to apply, and
which is 15 to 35.
That will actually drive the process. Thank you very much for coming. I cannot stop thanking you, and I pray that you reach your homes or offices, whichever applies, in good state. Thank you very much. Thank you, all the institutions. Thank you. Have a good day.
So I want to thank you all again. I won't add anything else, and just like thanking you for all your support and your attendance today. And the discussion has been really engrossing, so I look forward to being in touch with you. In terms of logistics, we're gonna have a buffet lunch downstairs. You have time to say you're all invited in the garden.
Make us stop there.
I know you have like so many pastries and coffee, but like, please, if you wanna have some